IB Nation, welcome back to the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Ryan Roberts, Director of Recruiting here at irishbreakdown.com, bringing you the latest Notre Dame recruiting news on the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour. Welcoming you all in. Hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. Hope that it was a pleasure. It was a little bit rainy here in New Jersey, but it was a good overall weekend for the most part. So, solo show today. So if you all can do me a favor, do me a solid. I just want to make sure if at any time during the show there's any bit of technical issues on my end or anything at all, just throw it in the chat just to make sure that I'm maintaining the quality of the show. Would appreciate that very much. But we are solo here today, folks. First and foremost, if you're happy, if you're having a good day so far, throw it in the chat, man. I want to know how everybody's doing. That's a great thing about Irish Breakdown, whether you're just in the Irish Breakdown YouTube chat or you're on the Irish Breakdown message board at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Community feel, right? So I'd like to know if everybody's doing good out there, man. So yes, Sean Davis is not with me today. I see a couple of jokes that are riding in already. But yeah, Sean is in travel today. He's traveling a little bit. So it's just me. I hope everyone could deal with it. Okay. I know it's just your guy here today, but ultimately we're going to have a great show. A lot of recruiting news. And just so you all know, we have obviously during the off season specifically, we had flip-flopped. Typically, there was a recruiting hour used to be on Friday and the mailbag was on Monday. We have put it back to our usual and what we were typically doing it early on. Recruiting hour for the foreseeable future, at least for the rest of the offseason, is going to be on Mondays. Normal time, 1 o'clock. The mailbags are now going to be set back to Friday consistently throughout the rest of the offseason. Reason for that is especially when we get into the bulk of June with official visits during the weekends, I think that it's very good timing to have recruiting mailbag on a Monday to make sure you guys stay up to date as possible. So if we had a massive recruiting weekend with a bunch of official visitors and we're not having the recruiting hour until Friday, I feel like that's just not as much serve as we can give to you guys, right? So we'll recap the weekends, how every visit goes, latest in recruiting on Mondays, and then we'll rock out with the mailbag on Friday. So that's the recruiting schedule here moving forward. So Mondays, recruiting hour here with myself, usually with Sean Davis, occasionally with Brian Driscoll. And we're going to give you all the latest that you need to know 2025, 2026, and then even some 2027 news I'm sure that will be popping up very soon here. So, folks, what's up, man? How are y'all? Good to see everybody here on a happy Monday. So 3 topics today that we're going to get into. I'm going to talk about wide receiver recruiting in 2025. I actually have an article that's coming out at irishbreakdown.com very soon that's going to cite where the class is now, 2025 wide receivers, who are the players that are left on the board that Notre Dame is continuing to pursue heavily, and then also my hope and optimism for what the class could look like, but also the question marks, right? So we're going to dive into every facet of 2025 wide receiver recruiting because, to be honest, I'm very anxious to see how it ends. And anxiousness is a word that has a negative connotation to it naturally, but also you can be anxious and be excited about something too, right? So I'm anxious to see what it looks like because I think there is a reality where it can end up being a very good class, but there is that other reality where a lot of question marks that still need to be answered. So we're going to talk 2025 wide receiver recruiting, 2026 quarterback talk, folks. I know that there's been a lot of crystal balls that have been thrown out recently. I know there's been a lot of chatter at boards.irishbreakdown.com. So let's just talk about it, right? We're going to talk about the latest with Noah Grubbs, latest with Brady Hart, the latest with quarterback recruiting as well in 2026, because that is much more of a positive conversation compared to 2025 wide receiver recruiting, at least today. So we'll work through all that. But first, introducing a new segment and a new topic to you all that I'm really excited about, man. I really am. So if you're on the message board at boards.irishbreakdown.com, first of all, thank you for being a part of it. Second, if you're not on boards.irishbreakdown.com, what are you waiting for? I know that people in the chat right now could throw in the rave reviews, 5 stars. You should be on the boards. It's very economical. It's a nice price point to be on the board and get the latest intel, recruiting, and team-wise. So make sure that you go over to boards.irishbreakdown.com if you're not on there already. But if you are, you know that this morning we love to give you guys a little bit of a subscriber centric feel to this show as much as possible, right? So this is a premium type of outlook that I'm doing on today's show. We're talking some hot takes in the recruiting world, okay? So I left it open. I put a post on the message board, and if you guys are in here now that are also on the message board, you can post some questions in here while I'm going because it will refresh on my end. So what I want here today, let's talk some hot takes. And it's recruiting centric, so it can be from a Notre Dame perspective. There's a couple questions that are from a general recruiting perspective. There's also a national question about Alabama recruiting that I want to just kind of get into. So hot takes for people that aren't on Twitter and social media, hot takes are a thing that kind of get thrown out there a lot. It is a opinion that is, we would call it a little bit spicy. That might not be a popular opinion, but it's one that you believe in or one that you think can possibly happen. Now, a lot of clickbait usually with hot takes, but then there are the general sense of hot takes where it's just something you truly believe. I mean, and it happens every single year that a hot take is proven to be right. So people threw hot takes in the chat, premium subscribers. I'm going to work through them one-on-one. I'm going to either debunk or agree with a lot of these takes and then give you the case of why I believe the way I believe, but also I want to hear you guys' opinion, right? If you think I'm right, if you think I'm wrong, what you believe about the specific topics. I think this first section is going to be a whole lot of fun. So let's get into it, guys. Let's get into it. Again, premium subscribers for these hot takes here, recruiting-wise, but we'll get into a little bit more general sense as well. We had, and can't throw them in here, Jason. Can't throw them in the chat now, man. Go to boards at boards.com because I know you're in there, my friend. Throw the questions in there, okay? It's a premium subscriber. I know you're a premium subscriber, but still throw it in there because I don't want to hit, especially doing a solo show. I don't want to have to look through some of these in the chat and be like, man, I don't know if that guy's a premium subscriber or not, because as we know, there's some people that just go by aliases and they have their screen names and I don't really know what their first name is, okay? So throw them in the chat. Throw them in the message board at boards.com. The section that I'm talking about is called Recruiting Hot Takes. Okay, Recruiting Hot Takes. Thank you so much, sir. All right, we're gonna start with Rebel Irish. Yeah, Tommy, you have a bunch of screen names I've heard in the past, sir. That's why that's conversation for another day. Rebel Irish, the first hot take of today, and he started out with one, man. He started out with one. So Rebel Irish says, don't know how well this will go over. I love when things start that way because usually they don't go over too well, but let's work through it, Rebel Irish. Don't know how well this will go over, but my hot take is Al Washington is on the hot seat. He has been doing a good job, but not where he needs to be. I think head coach Marcus Freeman is giving him every chance to up his game and battle, but to me, he has been there a decent amount of time, and he has been underperforming in the recruiting space. Just like the players, he needs to perform at a higher level, and it's next man up. Not sure who that could be. Just a feeling he may be the weakest link at this moment in time. Woo! We're starting out hot. Let's do it. Love it, Rebel Irish. So, hey, and super chats, by the way, folks, super chats always get pushed to the front of the line. So if there's a question that is pertinent to this show, in this segment, I will push it up to the front. Because if you want to throw a hot take in as a super chat, we can make that happen for sure. But like Ida Benami just threw one in, I will make sure to get that before the second segment of today's show. So I will talk about that at the end of this first segment, sir. Thank you so much for that super chat. Just want to let you know that I saw it, man. I saw it, and it's in the memory bank already. Okay, so hot take on Al Washington. He's on the hot seat. I don't buy it, Rebel Irish. I don't buy it. Okay, so I think that there's a lot that we can dive into with Coach Washington, and obviously this is a recruiting centric question. So most of what we're going to talk about is his performance on the recruiting trail, right? And the defensive lineman that he's closed on, the defensive lineman that he hasn't, and the defensive line decisions, which is where my skepticism more comes with Coach Washington, to be honest with you. I don't think that Al Washington is a bad recruiter. I don't. I just think he's a pretty good recruiter. I think that there are just some questionable decisions that get made for whatever reason, right? And we can talk about evaluation. We can talk about the process. There's a lot to dive into. First and foremost, though, to be a successful college football coach, this is a multifaceted situation, okay? One, You have to be able to be a good coach, first and foremost, right? College football world, you got to be able to recruit, and you have to be a good representative of the program of which you coach at and you represent, right? All those things are included in everything, okay? All those things are included in evaluating how a person is doing a job, okay? First and foremost, I'm going to start with the latter there. I haven't heard a single word about negativity of Al Washington, the person. I haven't heard a single word. I think that he is a good representative of Notre Dame football, which is why he keeps getting selected to be the head coach in this spring game. And he's a guy that Coach Marcus Freeman has spoken out very admirably about his potential to be a really good coach, head coach down the line at a potential university. So first and foremost, I do think he's a good representative of a program. I do. Coaching wise, I think Al Washington did a very good job this year in 2023 of coaching defensive line. 2022, I thought it was a mixed bag. Be honest with y'all, I think there were a couple of veterans, Isaiah Foskey, Jason Adambalola, etc., that maybe necessarily didn't buy in to the first year coaching of Al Washington. Okay. So I think that we did not see the best version of that defensive line in 2023, but 2024 we did. And I know that some people will argue against this point, and it's a very good conversation. I truly think it is. I would say I think he got the most out of Howard Cross to the degree that I'm seeing potential top 100 pick Howard Cross in the 2024 NFL draft, despite being a smaller 2025 NFL draft, excuse me, as a guy that is 6'1", 280 plus pounds on a good day, a very undersized defensive lineman. He's getting some legitimate talk to not only be one of the best defensive linemen in college football, which he had an argument to last year, but also to be an NFL draft pick and a pretty high NFL draft pick, right? So I think that he got a lot out of Howard Cross last year. I think he got a good amount out of Riley Mills. Riley Mills needs to take a step forward, but he was still good. He was still good this year. He was good. Javonte Jean-Baptiste bought in to Coach Al Washington for his relationship with him at Ohio State, and I think that he really did kind of exceed expectations there, right? So I think there were a lot of members of this defensive line, especially this past year, that exceeded or at least played up into potential. I think that that's pretty easy to say, okay? But then there's going to be the naysayers, and again, I am sympathetic to this rebuttal to me is that, but those guys weren't guys that he recruited, right? Those were guys, even though I think he technically did recruit Javonte Jean-Baptiste, but that's a different conversation for another day. We can have that, whatever. But the conversation is going to be, those were Mike Elston's guys. Yes, he may have done a good job coaching them for 1 to 2 years, but is he responsible for the full scope of the player? And I get that. And again, I am sympathetic to that. But I will ask you guys this. Did anyone, and this is no shot at Mike Elston. I think Mike Elston's a very good coach. Very good coach. But did anyone think, looking back 2 years before Al Washington was here, if I told you at that point that Howard Cross was going to be an all-American level player and a player that could potentially be drafted in the top 100 picks of the 2025 NFL draft, would you have believed me? I wouldn't have believed me. I would not have believed me at all, which is why I never would have said that. I think he needs credit to the career arc of Howard Cross. I think he needs credit for getting the most out of Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who was nothing more than a part-time rotational player at Ohio State and then turned himself into a draft pick. I think he needs credit for those guys. I think he does. Chris Smith was a average, good. Well, all right. So for the level, good player at Harvard, okay, as an interior defensive lineman, but he wasn't. I didn't think he was going to come to Notre Dame and contribute 2 years ago. And Al Washington got the most out of Chris Smith, in my opinion, right? So I think that he has shown that he's a good football coach. Okay. The second part of this list that I said, again, coach, recruiter, person. I think that the second one is the big area of concern, which is why we're talking about it on a recruiting show. Okay. And someone asked, is it more about, I want to make sure I got this right, because I think it was a very fascinating question. Would you say it's more of the fault of the plan rather than the execution? Yes. Yes. I don't think it's as much an execution problem. I think that there are just some decisions that are made on players specifically that I do not agree with. And I think that most of us would agree with. And we have no idea if we're right. We've talked about the Marco Jones thing, right? The staff did not see Marco Jones as a guy that they wanted as a Viper in this class. Okay. They just didn't see him like that. That's fine. Or I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I disagree with that so much. So much. But am I right now? No, not yet. Are you right now? Not yet. Is the Notre Dame staff right now? Or parts of Notre Dame staff right now? No, not yet. Nobody's right. It's a difference of opinion. And I tend to believe, in my opinion, thank you, Anon. I appreciate you. I tend to agree with believe in my opinion because that is, I mean, if I believe in my eyes, right? I believe in my opinion as an evaluator, right? I do. And I think that long term, the decision on Marco Jones is going to be the wrong one. Okay. I think the decision to not push harder for Javion Campbell early is a fault. I think the CJ May situation was a mistake. How you did it, not necessarily the decision, but the process to how you got there. I think if you made that CJ May decision, you needed to have a better plan in place of a player that you were going to land, right? Damen Shanklin is a player in the 2025 class, okay? He's a player in the 2025 class. I don't fault Al Washington for the Damen Shanklin thing. The fault I give to the Notre Dame staff on the Damen Shanklin situation, though, is that they didn't read it well enough early. That kid didn't want to come to Notre Dame. And I was telling you guys this 2 months before we had the conversation of like, hey, it's over. That like, guys, Notre Dame is easily the best option here. And he's still waiting. What's he waiting on? He's waiting on other options to come on the table. He was waiting for Ohio State. He was waiting for those other options to be out there for him. Okay. Notre Dame, and this is all due respect to Damen Shanklin. I have nothing against Damen Shanklin because he didn't want to come to Notre Dame. That's fine. Not everybody does. I'm okay with that. Okay. But the reality is that Notre Dame they were a placeholder for Damen Shanklin. They were a place that he respected and a place that he thought that could do well by him. Okay. That was a place that he respected the coaches. Okay. But at the end of the day, he didn't want to go to Notre Dame. He wanted other places more. That's it. But again, is that Al Washington's fault that he wasn't able to convince him that he should go to Notre Dame? No, it's not. I don't think anybody else could have either. I don't think anybody else could have. I really don't. Unless you would have moved the Ohio State Buckeyes to South Bend, Indiana, I don't think he was ever going to go to South Bend. I think he's going to get out of the state of Indiana. I think that's what he wants. So I don't fault Al Washington for that, but I do fault the staff for not recognizing that earlier and pivoting to other options. That's one fault I do. And that's, again, what is that? That's a process, right? That's the process. It's nothing about closing on players. It's stop with the Damen Shanklin grade stuff. That's not correct. Okay. Stop putting that false narrative in the chat. Damen Shanklin didn't want to go to Notre Dame, guys. This was not a Notre Dame decision. He didn't want to go to Notre Dame. Stop with the grade stuff, the NIL money stuff. Stop. He didn't want to go to Notre Dame. It's okay. Not everybody does. As a Notre Dame fan myself, right? I would have loved to go to Notre Dame because I love the university. I love the football program. Damen Shanklin didn't. So stop with all the this, that, this is the reason. No, here's the reason Damen Shanklin didn't go to Notre Dame, guys. It's not at Washington. It's not NIL. It's not grades, okay? Damen Shanklin didn't want to go to Notre Dame. That's it. Oh, my God. Here we go with the grades again. Okay, guys. Yep, grades are an issue with everything. I know. We can always throw out those false narratives we want to help us cope, but that is not the overarching issue, the reason, okay? It's not. It's not. I promise you. But okay. Right. You guys are right. You're right. I'm sorry. Okay. Anyway, all that to circle back to Rebel Irish's main point of Al Washington being on the hot seat. I don't think he is. Just don't think he is. I think he's doing a really good job in 2 or 3 aspects of being a great coach. Do I think he needs to improve his process? as a recruiter? Yes, 100%. 100%. I think he needs to improve his process as a recruiter. I think there are more efficient decisions that need to be made with a little bit more, I want to phrase this the best possible way I can. They need to have a little bit more insight into what's next, right? What's next? So that's where I think it is, though. Rebel Irish, it's a great question. Okay. Support system's there, but ultimately, the decision on players you're going after is started by the position coach. They are heavily involved in that decision, obviously, right? So all that to say is, I don't think he's on the hot seat. Could it, if he takes a step back as a coach and the recruiting blunders start coming? Okay, then we can have that conversation in it for the day. But I don't think he's on the hot seat right now. I do think that Al Washington, for the most part, is doing a good job. Do I question some of the recruiting tactics? Absolutely. But I don't think it is in such a dire strait that he is on the hot seat of being fired. I don't think that, right? I don't think that. So, yeah. Great question, though. Great question. We had DCLTJ on the message board. Says, recruiting hot take. And I would love to hear you guys' insight on these. Okay. I'm glad that we're having conversations in the chat. It's what a chat is made for. Thank you all so much for being participants in that today. But if there's any opinions of difference or perspective you guys want to put out there and what you believe in these hot takes, throw them out there, man. I'd love having conversations, especially on I don't know if you know this, guys. A solo show is not the easiest thing in the world. Okay. It's not an easiest thing in the world, but yeah. DCLTJ with a recruiting hot take says Duce Knight will redshirt his first year. No question his talent, but his consistency needs to be honed in, and the quarterback depth will allow Notre Dame not to rush to be ready. DCLTJ, I think that this is I don't think it's a hot take. I think that that's probably the best outcome for first year, because the way I look at it is this, right? Will Duce Knight be so good of an athlete that he needs to play in some capacity, right? Is that possible? Sure. He might have a similar situation to the Tyler Buckner thing as a freshman where, yeah, Tyler Buckner's not the full-time quarterback and he's still learning and all those great things, but also he's too athletic to not use in some capacity. That's always possible, right? But I do think for the best case scenario for the Notre Dame program, I think a year of red shirts, adding strength, adding technical prowess to his strengths, I think would be a tremendous thing for Duce Knight. And I think that you hit on one of the main points is that with CJ Carr as a redshirt freshman, with Kenny Minchie hopefully still there as a redshirt sophomore, with Steve Angeli potentially there as a redshirt junior, I think that and John, we're not putting that stuff in the universe in here, man. Like it's not whatever. Okay. You got me sidetracked. Congratulations on you, sir. Congratulations on you. But I think with the depth of that Notre Dame has created at the quarterback position, okay, I do believe that Duce Knight is going to be in a scenario where he can just kind of let it grow a little bit, right? He is going to be the Gino Guidugli test as a freshman. How technically refined can you make a player in a year under that strength and conditioning program? Can you add 10 good pounds of muscle for him? Because my expectation is redshirt 2025. And even if, let's say, CJ Carr has a very good first year as a starter in 2025, let's just say hypothetically, or Kenny Minchie, you can throw either one of those guys in there, okay? Glad you saw that, John. Glad you saw that. Even if he has a nice season as a freshman, I'm still letting Duce compete, man. I'm still letting him compete. That kid is. I said this on Twitter the other day. I don't know if you guys saw, but Duce Knight won state championship in both the long jump and the high jump this past weekend. He had a near 24-foot long jump, which, for some context, Cam Williams jumped about 24 plus, like somewhere in that ballpark. Micah Bell, who was a great athlete, although he's since entered the transfer portal, he had a 24+ inch long jump. So long jump similar to both those guys, who are both very explosive athletes, and also 6'8" 6'8" high jump. And if we've seen Duce Knight's basketball highlights, it's not shocking, right? That he is a really good high jumper. Not shocking at all. But put this on Twitter, and I believe this wholeheartedly. I know some people threw in like Carlisle Holiday and a couple other people. Look, first jersey I ever got was a number 7 jersey because of Carlisle Holiday. Because I remember how big of a recruit he was. I was like, dang, who's that guy? That guy looks special. That's incredible. And Carlisle was a great athlete. Great athlete. But I believe that Duce Knight, it will be, when he suits up for Notre Dame, the best athlete that Notre Dame has ever had at his position. And now, I haven't seen every Notre Dame quarterback, obviously. I haven't seen it. But when you throw out, I have seen, games of Tony Rice. I've seen highlights of Tony Rice. I've seen Carlisle Holiday. I've seen Everett. I've seen Malik. I'm trying to think of like some of the more athletic quarterbacks I've seen in my lifetime. That I believe would be the best athlete I've ever seen a quarterback in Notre Dame history. For me, in my own personal history. Again, I don't. If you guys want to throw out a random quarterback in the 70s or whatever that played that was a great athlete, you can have that. I don't know. I can't put enough context in there. Can't put enough context that I didn't see them actually play. But Duce Knight is a freaky athlete, folks. Freaky athlete. So that is me a long way of saying letting him compete as a redshirt freshman no matter what. Letting him compete 100%. Too talented of a kid not to have an opportunity on the table. So Duce Knight, pretty dang good. But yes, I agree with you, DCLTJ. I think a redshirt as a freshman is very possible. And I think that year 2 is when you hopefully see that big boom. Wow, he's really starting to get it technically, right? The release is more consistent. The feet are more consistent. And now I can take full advantage of the athlete he is. So I actually don't even think it's too much of a hot take. I actually think that's kind of a ideal scenario, man. I think that's a pretty ideal scenario. All right. Let's go to Ballpeen Shalele, who I think is in the chat, but he was definitely on the message board. There's no doubt about that. Here's a recruiting hot take. Under Marty Biagi, Notre Dame stops taking kicking recruits entirely and creates a direct transfer pipeline from Australian kickers. That is the take. And Ballpeen Shalele, I disagree completely. Disagree with you, sir. Absolutely disagree with you. Obviously playful because I see that you're in the chat here, right? I think that there could be because let's look at it this way. Okay? We're talking about place kickers. Australia is punting, right? More known for the punters that they bring out. So you talk about Pro Kick Australia, that's where all the great punters come from overseas, typically. So first and foremost, to poke the hole there, Australian kickers, nope. Australian punters, to a degree. So here's where the forecast is specialist, though. Here's the forecast, right? Kickers. Notre Dame has now gone to the transfer portal back-to-back years. Actually, 3 straight years. But Brian Mason was responsible for 1, right? So the last 2 years, though, Spencer Schrader, 2023 season. 2024 season, you're going to have Mitch Jeter. So he's gone to the transfer portal. Both American-born players, obviously, right? Both All-American, both highly touted and were very good at their previous institutions, but both guys that were not Australian, right? Again, just poking holes into the little bit of there, right? A little bit of context. I do believe, though, that there's going to be a mix and match of the kicking moving forward, though. Like, I think that the transfer portal will always be an option, but they did offer a scholarship to Eric Schmidt in the 2025 class. So we'll see if they are able to make a move with him, a kicker in that class. So that obviously would not be an Australian player. I think punting is going to be very interesting, though, because punting now, the only things we've known of Marty or Coach Biagi so far is he had Bryce McPherson that was already on the roster, who was a previous high school recruit. But obviously then he goes and finds his future punter from Australia. Okay. And I don't know if that's I don't know. I don't know if that is going to be his ideal every single year. I think that Coach Biaggi is going to be open to both transfer portal and potential other options like Australian punters. I think that that is a scenario that we're going to see consistently because he does have great insight, and I talked to their not only punters coach but him himself that talked a lot about how Coach Biaggi has had Australian punters already in previously at other institutions. So I do think that the Australian route for punting is alive and well. I do think it's alive and well. So if they're able to do that, don't think it's sugar. What are you talking about, Paul? Actually, it's not sugar, Paul, because ADHD, man. So I forget it. Another conversation for another day. Stop distracting me. Tommy, I'm going to kick you out of the chat, okay? Hear me. I'm going to kick you out of the chat, sir. Don't mess with me. Don't mess with me today. I have the hammer of God right now, so don't mess with me. Australia, though, for punters, I think is a realistic option. I don't know if it's going to be consistent every single year, but I could see it being on the table. There you go. There you go. All right. Head 56 with another one. You guys are crazy in the chat today, man. Relax. Notre Dame will go into Missouri and land Jackson Cantwell. He is the 2026 offensive tackle out of Nixon, Missouri. He says it's a battle, but ultimately Notre Dame's long history of offensive line production in NFL draftees makes the difference. I hope you're right, T-Bed, first and foremost. I hope that you're correct. For my money, for everyone that I've seen, and I've not seen all X amount of players in the 2026 class, but Jackson Cantwell is probably the best one that I've seen so far. Just flat out player. He is a really, really good football player. Fantastic. 6'7.5", 300 pounds already coming off his sophomore year. The kid is also a incredible track and field athlete. So both his parents are Olympic throwers, and he himself is over 200 feet in the discus, and I believe he just PR'd, and he's over 70 foot in the shot put as a sophomore in high school. So this kid is outrageous talent, like absolutely outrageous. Now, I actually had a interview with him 4 days ago. It was sometime last week, though, because Notre Dame was actually by to see him last week during we're in the spring evaluation period right now. So Notre Dame coaches are all on the road. So I've been trying to give you guys as many updates as I possibly can on the players that are getting visited anyway. So it was by to see him, Coach Rudolph. He's been incredibly complimentary of Notre Dame in the sense of Notre Dame has been very, very consistent of staying in touch with him and continuing to build that relationship. And I think they've been talking pretty much every week at this point. I believe every Wednesday is when they have their talk and their conversation on the phone, which is great. It's really good. He also did, and this is a shout out to TBed56 because he actually cited that. He talked a lot about their most recent conversation was about Coach Rudolph was talking about Joe Alt and Blake Fisher and how they did in this past draft and kind of an outlook to the future and some other great players that should be coming down the pipeline of next great Notre Dame offensive linemen to go into the NFL. And it's very attractive for a guy like a Jackson Cantwell. Very attractive. But that being said, I need to see him visit first before I have any type of optimism here. Because, yes, he says all the right things. I think Notre Dame is a spot that's very intriguing to Jackson Cantwell. But Jackson has been to Georgia twice already. A Missouri guy. Been to Georgia twice already. He's been to Missouri a bunch of times at this point. The top two schools as of now, in my estimation, in my opinion, based on talking and just kind of hearing, is Georgia and Missouri are the two top for Jackson Cantwell right now. Now, he's a 2026 guy, though, right? So Notre Dame has time here. This isn't like a doom and gloom. They have no shots, but it is a – is the mic still bad? Someone throw me something in the chat. Is the mic still bad? I just want to make sure that I'm not missing on this context here, guys. So, Mike, in and out. How's it going? Hopefully it's not too bad. Okay, my bad. All right. Thank you so much, though. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. So, Notre Dame has a chance here. ultimately, right? It's kind of all I'm saying. Notre Dame has to get into campus. Notre Dame has to show Jackson Cantwell that it's a place that makes a lot of sense to him. And they have to be able to really create a little bit of momentum in that recruiting. Because as of today, I would say that Georgia and Missouri are the ones that are really making kind of setting the tone of that recruitment. So again, they have time, but as of today, I would sell that hot take just because I just need to see him get to campus, get to South Bend, and then we could have a conversation. I hope that that's where things go. But ultimately, as of today, it's gotta you got to take a step forward in this recruitment. So Jackson Cantwell, that's where the latest is there. Luke Breeding had a very hot take, guys, especially if you heard my my earlier conversation here. So Luke Breeding says Notre Dame stays. Okay, if it's choppy, I'm sure it'll fix itself. My apologies. My apologies. We'll get there. Notre Dame stays on Damen Shanklin and commits on National Signing Day. Well, that's quite a hot take because I'll say this, Luke. And again, I don't want to go too deep into the weeds on Damen Shanklin since I already had a little bit of a tirade on him earlier in the show. But I believe Damen Shanklin, one, isn't coming to Notre Dame. I don't think there's a world that he ever comes to Notre Dame. And two, I just don't think that even there's going to be consistent communication moving forward just because that one's dead. It's dead in the water. Look, at the end of the day, the minutes that Damen, well, I don't say the minutes. That's a little too hyperbolic. But as soon as Damen Shanklin started getting some of the offers that he wanted, Ohio State being the other one, the main one that I keep talking about, Notre Dame was kind of dead in the water, to be honest with y'all. It was kind of dead in the water. So, Luke, I will give you a 10 out of 10 on the hotness of that take. That is a hot take and one that I very much disagree with. Unfortunately, I would love Damen Shanklin to be in the class. Would love him. Because you know what? Like, he is a very talented football player, man. Very talented football player. A guy that I think would be a huge asset to the Notre Dame program. Just not going to happen. Just not going to happen, unfortunately. So, selling the take, Luke, but it's very hot, and I appreciate the hotness and the spiciness of that take. I appreciate it very much. We had P Fluke 1 with a super chat. He said, Tylan Taylor will sign with the Irish. So, P Fluke, it's not as hot, obviously, as the Damen Shanklin one, because I just said that one's dead in the water. Here's the thing with Tylan Taylor. And I'm going to talk about this in wide receiver recruiting a little bit, okay? I'm going to talk about it there. And someone just asked if Damen Shanklin's going to end up at Ohio State. That would probably be my guess, right? That would probably be my guess, but we'll see. We'll see. But that would be my guess, Ohio State. I know Tennessee was high on his list at one point too. So, yeah. Notre Dame did offer Chris Henry. He was they offered Chris Henry very early when he was a freshman in high school, but he's going to Ohio State, or at least he is committed to Ohio State currently. Tylan Taylor will sign with the Irish. I am going to sell that take as well right now. Okay. Notre Dame is still competing in that one, guys, right? And they still got a visit from him a few weeks ago, and there's plans to take an official visit to Notre Dame, right? And Notre Dame is battling for Tylan Taylor, okay? But as of today, if you ask me where I think Tylan Taylor's going to go, one, it's not Notre Dame. Two, it's probably Georgia. That's where I would throw those two. If Ohio State makes a strong push and Ohio State gets even more into the mix with Tylan, then I think that Ohio State could have they could have a pulse in the recruitment in the end, okay? But Georgia is my pick for Tylan Taylor as today. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Notre Dame can rekindle some of the momentum and they can flip the script on that one and they can be in a good spot going down the stretch. But I just don't necessarily see that one happening. So we'll see, but I don't see that one. I don't see that one. All right. Let's go to 99 Problems with BK Ain't One. He said, there's a lot of parts of this hot take, okay? A lot of parts to this hot take. Notre Dame is able to land a top 100 to 150 level defensive lineman And I'm curious, 99 Problems, if you're in here, and I thought you were at one point, can you tell me, if are you referring to, are we referring to the 2025 class is my question? Are you talking about like in the next 2026? I feel like it's a 2025 question, but I just want to make sure. I'm going to answer it as a 2025 question, but please correct me if that is not your aim to this question. Okay. So, hot take: Notre Dame is able to land a top 100 to 150 level defensive lineman. Along these lines, the defensive line won't be a traditional Viper, which will be further evidence that Notre Dame is recruiting towards a different type of defensive line profile than we've been used to having in the past. I would say, I would say this, okay? So the first part of the question. First part of that question. Will they land a top 100 to 150 level defensive lineman? I think they already have. It's kind of my easy answer there. I believe that Christopher Burgess is that guy already. If you're talking about 2025, I believe he is a top 100 to 150-pound guy, 250 to 150 level guy. I think that he is that type of dude. I actually think that Christopher Burgess could be a top 50 kid with a huge senior year. I think that he has that type of upside to him, man. He's incredibly, incredibly talented. There's no doubt. So I think they already have. If you're asking me if they will down the stretch, I'm going to say no. I know they're fighting for the recent offer, Jalen Wiggins, who's committed to the University of Florida in the 2025 class. But again, they've been working on it behind the scenes. We'll see if they're able to get him to visit. Then maybe that will continue to move the needle. But I do think that you already have one of those guys in the class. We'll see if Wiggins, they're able to move the needle with him and get him on campus. But as of today, if you're asking me, will they sign another top 100 to 150 player moving forward the rest of the 2025 class? I'm going to say no. I would say no to that. But if Wiggins makes a visit, then maybe my conversation will change a good bit. But I'm going to say no to that. I do agree, though, with your second part. Along these lines, the defensive line won't be a traditional Viper, which will be further evidence that Notre Dame is recruiting towards a different type of defensive line profile than we've been used to having in the past. I actually agree with that 100%. I I think that what we've seen in the past, right, in our 4-down system, is that big ends that is long and strong and powerful. Maybe not the bendiest dude of all time, but a guy that can set the edge and a guy that can rush enough with a strength profile. That's kind of been the big end prediction that you want. Okay. No top 100 this entire class. I just said that I thought that Christopher Burgess could be a top 50 player in this class, Anon, but okay. I already said that. So yeah. I do believe that the typical Viper is changing a little bit, though. I think in the next couple years, we're going to see a move, and this is just me predicting here, right? I've not been told this by anyone associated with Notre Dame, but I do believe that we are going to get to the point where we want both defensive ends to look the same, or not the same, similar-ish as far as the values that they bring to the table. Long, explosive, powerful. I think you're going to want a similar profile there. After that, it's all about situational and sub package football. That's why you see guys like Dominic Kulak be a guy that Notre Dame likes. I don't think that Dominic Kulak is just going to be an every down Viper for Notre Dame. They've talked a lot about the money backer position, and I think that he's going to be a guy that is going to be on the second level at times. There's going to be times where he's rushing from the outside. I think that we're going to use the versatility that he brings. And I disagree. I disagree with the Kulak was a bad take thing. I disagree. I think that Dominic Kulak is a lot more talented than a lot of people give him credit for, to be honest. It was like the third play on his film. He's ranging from a backside inside linebacker position to the to the opposite sideline off of a swing screen and hawks the dude down right after the numbers. This kid's athletic, man. And if your push against Dominic Kulak is that he's not athletic, I think you're wrong, first and foremost. I don't think he was a bad take. Do I think that it is? I think that what people are I think that what people are upset about Dominic Kulak could be as that's not true. Go watch his. Oh my gosh, go watch his highlights, dude. It's not. That's just a false statement that's in the chat right there. Like most of his are fullback, H back. What are we talking about? Oh man. Okay, back to my conversation about Dominic Kulak though. I think people are misplacing anger on Dominic Kulak because of the missteps at Viper recruiting. That's just flat out. I don't think anyone says anything negative about Damen Kulak. If Notre Dame would have just got Damen Shanklin, they would have kept CJ May, and everything was good in that area. Unfortunately, a couple defections have made people hyper focus too much on a player that I think is good, but is not a true Viper in this class. And now everyone just has in their mind Dominic Kulak's the Viper in this class. When I don't think that that's true, I just don't think so. Just don't think it's true. Just don't. So we'll see how it turns out. I just, as long as we're not backpedaling, right? Backpedaling. Either say you're wrong or hold firm to your take is all I ask. Okay. All I ask. Because if I'm right about Dominic Kulak, I'm going to hold firm to my opinion. Okay. If Dominic Kulak doesn't end up being well, I will say I'm wrong. Okay. But no backpedaling. Okay. No backpedaling. Oh, I always liked him. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. I see right in the chat. I see right in the chat that you didn't like him. Or don't backpedal and say, like, oh, I never liked him. No, it's not also not true. Not true at all. Okay. We have misplaced anger, and not me, not most of you, but I think some of you have misplaced anger because Dominic Kulak is now being looked at as the Viper in this class because Notre Dame made a couple bad decisions. Okay. Made a couple bad decisions. And this is where we are. This is where we are. But it's not a Dominic Kulak problem. It's a recruiting issue problem, at least in this instance. Okay. That's all. That's all. So, just my opinion. But 99 problems. I was answering your question about the Viper. I agree with you in the sense of that I think Viper is a position that is changing. I think that the line between strong side N and Viper are going to become they're going to become blurred a little bit is the best way to put it. I don't think that there's going to be as much of a difference in those two spots moving forward. It's just how I view things trending. But I disagree in the first part of, I don't think they're going to land another top 100 player on the defensive line the rest of this recruiting prospect at 2025. I think Christopher Burgess probably is the only guy that's going to be having that designation potentially for me. So, yeah. So hopefully that answers. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Oh, man. Yeah. Okay. 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 All right. We had. What the heck are you guys talking about in the chat? So weird. It's a hard 54-52. I just looked down and I see people talking about rugby, and then we're talking about Drake too in here. It's a wild chat today, man. It's a wild chat. I hope you guys are enjoying the show, though. Hope you guys are enjoying the show. Yeah, Brandon, I know, but hey, I mean, in order to be the money backer, you have to cross train at Viper though, because it's like a hybrid position, if that makes sense. So like he's going to be doing stuff on the second level and rushing from a Viper alignments, right? But that also doesn't mean. I know I've seen the rap beef on Archer. I'm on Twitter, man. I see the rap beefs. I got it. I got you, man. I got you. Hopefully the thank you, Archer. Appreciate you, sir. Hopefully the internet issue has been resolved, by the way, guys. I know a couple of you guys said there was a little bit of a mic hiccup at one point. Hopefully it's a little better now. Hopefully it's a little better. I'm having a good time. I hope you guys are having a good time. We had ball peen shillelagh. I hear you, man. I hear you. Yeah, I don't know what green man. I don't know what you're talking about in the chat, my man. I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah. So SR 5452. Again, we're on the message board here, my friends. Yeah, I know Jordan Mailata is my guy. I know Jordan Mailata. But Jordan Mailata is one of one, though. I mean, we're not seeing too many of those cases. I know we're seeing more, but that's a pretty rare thing. It's a pretty rare thing. Note, so SR 5452. Tell me, guys, if you buy or sell this hot take. Notre Dame will no longer be considered tight end U in 2 to 4 years. 2 to 4 years. I disagree with that take very much. Very much. Because, look, I think that for me, tight end U, anytime we dub someone a U of something, right? Whether the sorry to hear that, Archer. Sorry to hear that, Faulty. Thank you for letting me know, though. Thank you for letting me know. So tight end U, anything to be considered U, whether it's offensive line U, cornerback U, DBU, quarterback U, whatever, any type of U, I think that is something that is created over time, a long period of time. Okay. I think that is created a long period of time. Notre Dame is not tight end U because of Michael Mayer, right? Notre Dame is tight end U because of Kyle Rudolph and Cole Kmet and Alize Jones, Mac to a points, right? But like John Carlson, Anthony Fasano, going way back to the Mark Bavaro era. I mean, Dave Casper. Like, there's a long history of Notre Dame and quality tight end play, which is why Notre Dame is considered tight end U. That is why we are here today. So I think even if Notre Dame, because Notre Dame did have a little bit of a down tight end production spots in like the late 2010s, right? Like there were a couple years there where tight end production was not great, but the tight end U moniker still lasted because of what Notre Dame had done historically, right? So my question for you would be, yes, I just called you Archer. That should be Salty. That is a compliment. Archer is one of the best people in this chat. Yes. Yes, sir. Tyler Reifert, I think I said Kyle Rudolph, Felix, but yeah, Tyler Reifert, obviously included in that conversation as well. A long history of a lot of great tight ends that have come through Notre Dame and into the NFL. That is why you're tight end U. My question for you, and I don't know if you're in this chat, SR5452, but in order for Notre Dame not to be tight end U, one, Notre Dame would have to have a pretty long drought, which I don't think is going to happen because I mean, if Mitchell Evans is healthy, he was one of the better tight ends in college football last year before he got hurt. I mean, at least from a production perspective. Then you have Eli Raritan, Cooper Flanagan. You have James Flanagan coming in 2025. I mean, there's a lot of tight ends that are coming down the pipeline here, man. This isn't like a bare bones situation. There's a lot of good tight ends in this room. So for one, I think it's incorrect just because I think that the consistency of Notre Dame tight end play is going to continue into the future. I have an interview that's coming out with JC Anderson, who is a tight end in the 2026 class, who Mike Denbrock is talking a lot to him and his family about what tight end is going to look like in the future here moving forward, right? Maybe a little bit more of a vertical elements, guys that can create some big plays, right? Can create some big plays. So I think tight end U is alive because I think the talent is very much in the Notre Dame room and will continue to be in the Notre Dame room. And the other thing is, for someone to get dethroned as a U, right? Tight end U, offensive line U, whatever, that means another team has to come to the forefront and become that, right? I mean, there's just not, it's not like a blank slate of like, oh, no one's tight end U, no one's offensive line U. Like everyone's always going to argue for something. So my question would be, who's tight end U? I mean, are we going with the Iowa thing, right? Like, are we saying TJ Hawkinson and Noah Fant and Sam Laporta and then maybe Luke Lachey next year? Like, is that where tight end U is trending? Is it trending toward Iowa? Are we going to start a string of incredible Georgia tight ends now that we just had a historical one with Brock Bowers, right? Like, my question would just be to follow up is, who would tight end U be then? If Notre Dame wasn't tight end U, who would be tight end U? I guess recency. It might be. Might be Iowa, I guess. I mean, I guess I'm just saying is I think it's Notre Dame. I do think it's Notre Dame. So yeah, I think it has been established for a long time. So I do disagree with that take, although I do think it's a solid one. I think it's a solid take. And Brandon, they are pushing for those guys. I just use JC Anderson as an example because that was the person that I talked to recently. So yeah, there's only 5 tight ends on the board in 2026 though right now. So it's not a big board right now, right? So Notre Dame's talking to all those guys. Buddy Gabrick on the message board says, for Notre Dame, we land 2 more wide receivers out of the state of Texas in the 2025 class. Ooh, this one's spicy, man. I like this. Non-Notre Dame, Brian Kelly and LSU lose all 3 of their top 10 recruits committed before National Signing Day. I love the hotness, buddy. I love the hotness. So first and foremost, let's start with the Notre Dame-centric one. Notre Dame will land 2 more wide receivers out of the state of Texas, okay, in the 2025 class. Obviously selling that one because the only one that I think is even realistic out of the state of Texas is Tanu Kynes. So that is just one. So I'll sell that one. I don't know who the other guy, I mean, they're not really in the game for Michael Terry, right? Like I don't know who the second wide receiver out of the state of Texas would be in 2025, so I would have to sell that one. The non-Notre Dame one, Brian Kelly and LSU lose all 3 of their top 10 recruits committed currently before National Signing Day. Now that's super interesting, man. Super interesting because the wide receiver Moore in the 2025 class, I think it's the Carrion Moore. He keeps visiting Ohio State. So I think he's visited Ohio State at least twice this offseason so far. And I know Archer's in the chat, so he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he's been at least one. Well, he's been definitely been once. I think he's been twice, though. I think he's been twice. So he seems like a guy that certainly has things open. I haven't heard anything about Bryce Underwood, though. Like, I haven't heard a single thing. No, it's not a White Claw. It's Celsius. Celsius is an energy drink. Don't drink on the job, sir. Don't drink on the job. Come on, my friend. Yeah, I think at least twice, right, Archer? Yeah, I thought so. I thought he was at least twice to campus. So he's a guy that's certainly at least looking, right? Like his options are obviously on the table. So he would be a guy that I think is an obvious one, right? So the Corian Moore, I think, is a guy that potentially could flip. We'll see what happens. Bryce Underwood, I haven't heard anything about Bryce Underwood flipping. I just haven't. I haven't even heard him taking a look at other places necessarily. So I'll say no. I'll say no to the take overall because I just don't know if Bryce Underwood's going to be a guy that's going to flip. The other one's Harlem Berry, I guess would be the top 3. I guess he would have to be the top 3. Harlem Berry is a Louisiana guy. He's a Louisiana guy. So I don't necessarily see that one happening. But so for the hotness of the take, I respect it. And I think there's some validity to it, at least partially. But I think that probably 2 out of 3 stick. I think 2 out of 3 stick. I think that Bryce Underwood probably sticks. Again, I don't know the guy personally well, right? So I don't know if he loves LSU or he's completely locked in. I just know I haven't heard anything that gives me pause on his commitment to LSU. The Corian Moore certainly gives me some pause, right? He's a Texas kid. He's been up to Ohio State a couple times. There is obviously some smoke to that fire a little bit. Harlem Berry's a Louisiana guy. So probably going to stick with LSU, right? So that's just kind of my pulse, though. So I'd say if your take was they lose at least one of their top 3 in the class, buddy, I agree. I think that one is very truthful. I could see that. But if you're saying all 3, probably not. Probably not. Highly unlikely, in my opinion. We had late path 1. Here's the Notre Dame take, guys. Elijah Burress has a better career at Notre Dame than Cam Williams, and I like Cam Williams a lot. I am selling that take. I know that there were some people that are very high on Elijah Burress, and I will talk more about Elijah Burress in my wide receiver portion of this show because I do have some questions about Elijah Burress. But I was big on Cam Williams. Just big. I think that kid was a legit 5-star talent in the 2024 class. Even if he doesn't have a dynamic freshman year, I think long-term, great coaching, that kid has a chance to be something special. So I'm going to sell the take just because I just think Cam Williams is a different type of athlete comparative to Elijah Burress. And no shade on Elijah. I think he has a lot of good to his game as well. But I think Cam Williams has special to his game. That's the biggest difference for me. So I'm going to sell that take. Jay Belcher, 68, with a hot take on the message board. Al Washington will land a head coaching job after this year. Marcus Freeman will replace him with a coach with a pedigree of putting defensive linemen into the NFL in order to boost our competitiveness with top recruits. Well, I have no idea. I would say this. Would I be shocked if Al Washington got a head coaching job over the next couple of years? No, wouldn't be shocked. I don't know how high of a level it would be, but I wouldn't be shocked at all. He clearly has the want to be a head coach on the college level. He's talked about it very openly. Someone asked him about it after the Blue Gold game, and he had talked about how it was a goal for him. Tila McCullough has also been very open about wanting to be a head coach on the college level. So, yeah, It's possible. Possible. After that, though, I can't really answer this take, Jay Belcher, because I don't know where Marcus Freeman would go after that. I I don't know. I don't know where his typically what Marcus Freeman has done is he has hired guys that he has a previous relationship with and knows them as individuals and as teachers, right? So my pulse would say that he would go more towards a guy that he knows rather than just a name, but that is just pure speculation on my part. We will dive into that obviously when and if that happens. We'll talk about that a whole lot. But yeah, I imagine Al Washington at some point in his career as a head coach somewhere. I mean, even if it's a MAC school or another G5 program, I think that he obviously has the want in there to be that to that level. So yeah, that's where we are. All right. We have a question from Nathan Milton. Nathan Milton says, Alabama will not have a top 5 recruiting class in 2025. I repeat, Alabama will not have a top 5 recruiting class in 2025. Well, first and foremost, that means I need to look up the Alabama recruiting class. I know a couple people that are in this class, but I need to see. So right now, according to the 247 composite ranking, okay, 247 composite ranking, Alabama is sitting at number 7 currently. They have 10 commitments in the 2025 class, including linebacker Daryl Johnson, wide receiver Derek Smith, out of the state of Alabama, Anthony Rogers apparently he's at Carver now. He was previously at IMG Academy. Very good running back, by the way. I'm a big fan of Anthony Rogers. Antonio Coleman, who is a Saraland, Alabama kid, committed. Miles Johnson, athlete out of TR Miller in Alabama. Jaden Harmon, who is a linebacker out of Rome, Georgia. Zymir Smith, an athlete out of Ridgely, Maryland. Abdul Sanders Jr., who's out of Modern Day. They also have commitments from a Millville, New Jersey guy. Oh, man, I had no idea about this one. Lotzir Brooks, who's a wide receiver, 5'9", 170. And Luke Metz, who's a linebacker out of Mill Creek in the state of Georgia. For people that know the name Mill Creek, that is where Caleb Downs went. That is where the defensive lineman that's a freshman at Notre Dame went. That I'm losing I'm losing my mind that they just moved to defensive tackle for whatever reason. Like, oh my gosh, guys, this is what happens when you're a dad. You just lose your minds. You lose your mind. Cole Mullins, there it is. It was in there somewhere. For some reason, I forgot it. Okay, so they both went to Mill Creek. You know what, Nathan? I'm thinking about this one a little more in depth here. I'm going to say, man. So you said we'll not have a top 5 recruiting class. I will buy that. I'll buy they won't have a top 5 recruiting class. Yeah. Someone, I believe in the chat, quoted you on there and said that they would take it a step further and say they won't have a top 10. I disagree with that one because although it's a new coach and it's Nick Saban versus Kalen DeBoer and the recruiting differences there and what one is built, I still think that name power holds something. And I think Kalen DeBoer is a very good coach. So I'm going to say that they have a top 10 class, but I will buy that they will not have a top 5 recruiting class. They will not have a top 5 recruiting class. Yes, I will buy that one. I'll buy that one. And I like the hotness of that, man. That's good because it's been a minute since we questioned if Alabama might not, well, top 5. I mean, I'm sure we've had that over the last few years, but a top 10, that's crazy, man. That would be crazy. All right. Then we had Joe Allen 72. Joe, I think you're in the chat. At least you were earlier. Joe Allen says, Christian Jones. Is Christian Jones from Omaha West Side still on the table, or are they moving on? They have moved on. Joe, not too much of a conversation there. Not really a hot take, though. It was really a hot. Joe, you sneaky dog, man. You snuck in a question in a hot take section. Sir. Oh, man, he snuck in a question. But yeah, they moved on from Christian Jones, unfortunately. Another decision that I personally wouldn't have made. I would have kept recruiting Christian Jones and see what happens. I'm part of the linebacker board, but yes, they have moved on from Christian Jones. You dirty dog, though, man. You dirty dog. You snuck in a question in a hot take section. Sneaky, man. You're sneaky. Sneaky. All right. Double Domer says at least one of the 2025 offensive lineman recruit will be a starter by the end of the 2025 season. Wow. Okay. Let's think about this one. Okay. So that means we're talking about Owen Strebig. We're talking about Will Black. And we're talking about Matty Augustine. Those are the three offensive line commits in the 2025 class. So offensive line, if we're rejecting the 2025, Notre Dame should have Charles Jagasaw. They should have Ashton Craig. They will probably have Billy Schrouth. So you'll have three of your five, more than likely. I believe Rocco and Pat Coogan would both have one more year, right? I think. Yeah, I think that they would still have one more year, but I mean, who knows what happens there? I'm going to say, for the just argument's sake, though, I'm going to say we have three of the five returning in 2025. That would mean by the end of the season, too. I like how you threw in by the end of the season, because if it was beginning of the season, I would have sold it all together. Man. I'm going to say Gerby Lambert's a starter at some point in 2025 at right tackle or inside at guard. After that, it's about, can anybody, Sullivan Absher, Sam Pendleton, a couple of the younger linemen coming up. I'm going to sell the take. I'm going to sell it. It's hot, and I appreciate the hotness of it. Jagasaw can't go pro after this season. It's the thing, Green Man. It's the thing. We're talking about for the 2025 season. So Charles Jagasaw will be a third-year player during his 2025 year. So he will not be eligible to leave for the NFL draft after this season. So he's asking during the 2025 year. So I'm going to sell the take. I'm going to sell it. It's hot, though. It's hot, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. All right, let's keep rolling here. Era, stop the rain. Give Tosh Baker a chance. Tosh Baker has a chance. We're talking about the 2025 season. Tosh won't have eligibility left after 2024. Woo, man. Al Washington will do the Jared Parker head coach exit to the sites of relief. I just want to throw that one out there because I don't like speculating on that type of stuff, but that was another one that was in the chat. Right. Then we had another page. Again, these are on the message board at boards.spring.com. Notre Dame will land one recruit who isn't on the radar of any program, a Armel Mukum type. I mean, I really hope, because guys, look, I hope that Notre Dame is doing their due diligence on defensive line recruiting as far as trying to find some guys that might be late risers. Like, that's a big thing about this evaluation period right now, is trying to find some hidden talent, guys that maybe you're not talking about enough, or people aren't talking about at all, that made massive steps in development going from their junior to their senior year. And then obviously the beginning portion of the 2024 season is going to be about identifying some of those breakout talents. It's going to be about identifying. So I hope that one's correct. I hope it does. I mean, who's not giving the talent on the offensive line a chance, Green Man? Who's not doing that? But CR Lewis, I hope that you're right. I hope that they do land someone else in the defensive line. I would even be okay with a high upside kid that needs some tutelage, but I think that they need to continue to do their due diligence. There's no doubt about it. Holt's era was divine. That's a fun screen name. Never seen that one before. Oh, you're an insider too. Annual member. That's great. His take, and we'll talk about this more in the quarterback section. He said Noah Grubbs will be the 2026 quarterback. My question would be, is that really hot? We got people throwing in crystal balls and prediction picks, and for Noah Grubbs to land with Notre Dame. So is that hot? I don't know. You guys tell me, is that hot? I don't know. I don't know if that's a hot one. I'm going to sell that as far as being hot. The Notre Dame 2020 was from John A1. John, shout out to you if you're in the chat, man. Don't know if you are or not. the 2025 wide receiver class will be more impactful than the 2025 cornerback class. That one, that's hot, sir. That's hot. John, I like it. I like it a lot, man. That's a good look. I don't agree with it. I don't believe it necessarily, but that's pretty hot. The wide receiver class would be more impactful than the 2025 cornerback class. Look, man, there's a reality where Notre Dame could potentially get, if they're able to land Mark Zachary, they could have Dallas Golden, Mark Zachary, Creed Thomas as their cornerback spots. And that is tremendous. Like, absolutely tremendous cornerback call. And I've already cited, I have concerns over the wide receiver class in 2025. And we'll talk about that more in the next section of this podcast. We'll talk about 2025 wide receiver recruiting. But that's a hot take. I like the hot take because I feel better about where 2025 cornerback class is from a talent perspective. And I think you need to remember Benjamin Morrison, because if I'm talking about just 2025, especially 2025, you're going to have Christian Gray back. You might have Jaden Mickey back, but you're going to need a new nickel. You're going to need another corner outside of out on the other side, more than likely, because Benjamin Morrison is obviously a big candidate to potentially leave early for the 2025 NFL draft. So I think there's going to be a cornerback spot open. I think there's going to be a nickel spot open. And yeah, you got Carson Hobbs, you got Leonard Moore. But I mean, if I'm doing my best, I'm trying to get a guy like Dallas Golden on the field in some capacity, even if that's just as a rotational player or in nickel and dime, like whatever. I'm trying to get him on the field. So I would sell that hot take, but I do respect the hot take because I do think that wide receiver, wide receiver class for the 2025 season, they're going to have to be counted upon in some capacity. They're going to have to be because look at where the roster is. You're going to be gone. Chris Mitchell's going to be gone after this year. Bo Collins is going to be gone after this year. Jaden Harrison's going to be gone after this year. Jaden Thomas, is he a guy that comes back for another year? I'm not sure. Deion Colsey. I mean, you're going to be losing a bunch of seniors after this year, right? Guys that don't have eligibility left, just in general. So I would say that wide receivers will have a chance to play, but just the corner class, though, especially going in, one, I think it's a better class overall comparative to wide receivers. And then two, I kind of stated, I think there's going to be opportunities for corner to play in 2025, man. Like nickel and an outside corner spot, I think are going to be open. So I think they'll have a chance to play. And then we had another one. I would love people's insight on this one because this is a fascinating one from John A1 again. John says Dallas Golden, who's a 2025 cornerback commit to Notre Dame out of the state of Florida, Berkeley Prep, said he will ultimately be playing safety at Notre Dame. He end up playing safety at Notre Dame. John, I don't think that one's too hot for one, but also I think that you might be right. I would probably buy that, maybe. Look, this is kind of where I think that's going to go with Dallas. Dallas is athletic enough to play outside corner, more than athletic enough to play outside corner. He's physical enough and explosive enough to play both inside at nickel, and he could play at safety, potentially. He can do all those things. He could also play wide receiver if you wanted him to, but he's obviously not going to do that at Notre Dame. So he could definitely play safety. This is the trajectory. Here's my projection, and here's my prediction on this, okay? One, I think that he's going to play at nickel as a freshman. Not based upon intel or insights, just where I think that his skill set could fit very quickly. Because at nickel, you're going to lose Jordan Clark. Micah Bell transferred. I think there's a very big need for a nickel in the 2025 season. And I think that Dallas Golden could very well be a guy that fits right inside. And after he does that, could he eventually play outside corner? Yeah, he could. Or I can make him a Tyrann Mathieu type of dude. And obviously, much different body type. But as a guy that could play nickel, that could play safety, that can mix and match and use his physicality and his explosiveness, I wouldn't be shocked if Dallas Golden's a full-time inside player, which, again, corner is very valuable, obviously. We've been talking about that for years. Having a guy that potentially eliminates or at least limits half of a field, big time. That matters. But you also could, And yes, I believe he is enrolling early, Jason. I do believe he's enrolling early. But you can avoid an outside corner. You can. Does it make your defense stronger if you have to avoid an outside corner? Yes, 100%. But you can avoid him. Can avoid him. If he's a boundary corner, you don't have to run into the boundary, right? You don't have to focus on him in one-on-one situations. Like, you can avoid Dallas Gold in the corner. It's very hard to avoid Dallas Gold in the nickel or the safety. Very hard. And he might just be such an impactful football player that I just want him to have as many opportunities as possible, man. As many opportunities as possible. So I would buy that take, John. I think that there is a reality where he could be an inside player, definitely at least early on in his career, and then we'll see as his game develops. Irish Gordy Nod, shout out to IGK. I know he's in the chat. His hot take. And Notre Dame fans, listen to this one. This one's a hot take. I just want you guys to hear this one because I thought this was fun. Nathaniel wubobotang, 2025 linebacker target out of IMG Academy, will be a better player for Notre Dame than his brother, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. That's the first part of his take. First and foremost, one, we're assuming that they land Nathaniel Owusu-Koramoah, which would be great, but obviously a lot of work that needs to be done there. More impactful than Jeremiah. Man, Jock was good, man. Jock was really good. That was an All-American, my friends. That was an All-American. Woo! I like it. It's hot, man. It's hot, and I like the hot. It's great. I really IGK. No shade, man. That is exactly what this post was for, man. I wanted some hot takes. I think Jason Smith makes a great point in the chat. Not necessarily that he's going to be better if he chooses Notre Dame, but he might be more ready to play early on. Because I think remember, like Jeremiah was a little bit of a tweener coming to Notre Dame, like played safety. Maybe he's a second level guy eventually, but like physically had to develop a little bit. Nathaniel is more ready to play than I think Jeremiah was early on in his Notre Dame career. Now, the entirety, man, that would be hot. That would be a really big ascension if he's able to be better than Jock, but anything's hot. I mean, I wouldn't bet against that family. The family has some crazy genes. So that's first half. Second half, Jackson Cantwell is the best offensive tackle in 30 years. I can't answer that one, IGK. I can't answer that one. Is he the best high school offensive tackle that I have personally seen? Probably. But I have not been covering recruiting or evaluating recruiting prospects for 30 years. Just haven't been doing it. That's more of I would love to ask Tom Lemming that question, right? He's a guy that's been doing it forever. I would love to ask him that. You know what's funny, though? Because, I mean, he's the best I've seen probably. There's a couple platforms that don't even have him as the top-rated offensive tackle. There's a couple. Interesting, because I watched that kid and I'm like, yeah, I don't know what more you need to see of Jackson Cantwell. Honestly, there aren't many guys like this, especially high schoolers. There aren't many. If Jackson Cantwell didn't play for 2 more years, or if he just somehow got a waiver that he's ready to go into college now, he'd still be a 5-star. Like, cool. You're really good. I don't think he needs those last 2 years, man. That kid is physically ready to play. I'm not saying like start and be an All-American from day one, but I'm saying like he's good, man. He's really, really good. So you have no pushback against me other than I haven't been evaluating for 30 years. So I don't know. But he's really, really good. Quick heat check in the chat. How's the mic issues? Mic issues any better? They bad? They're insane. Yeah. Oh, he's insane. Yeah, he is 100% insane. IGK. One of them. If you guys haven't seen Jackson Campbell, even if you're not a film guy, even if you don't really like to watch film and break down offensive linemen or whatever, dude, just go watch Jackson Cantwell for the fun of it. I've never seen a high school sophomore, 6'7", 300-pounder that moves as easily as this kid and has so much power upside. So much. He's really good. Okay, cool. Thanks, IGK. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. All right. Cool. Thanks, Ray. All right, so then we had Christopher Crosby just added to the Alabama conversation we had a little bit earlier. Okay. So he just said, and I just want to add this context because Christopher is a good member of the board. So since 2007, I know Christopher's in here most of the time. I don't know if he's in today, but he said since 2007, Alabama has an average class ranking of 2.4 in the ranking, including finishing first 9 times, depending on what site you use. Hot take, they will not finish in the top 10 in the 2025 class by at least one of the major platforms. See, like that one. So Christopher, I talked about your take a little bit. I couldn't remember who put it on the board, but I don't think that I could buy that one a little bit. I could buy that one a little bit because there's bound to be one platform that's a little bit lower in Alabama for whatever reason, right? So rank out the top 10 by one platform, I could buy that one. But I'm talking about like more of a composite ranking perspective, right? The industry ranking, like that type of thing. I would say that they probably rank inside the top 10 by the collective, but at one class, I could see one class. Oh man, I am not. No, guys, we're not talking about Baby Gronk on this channel. I'm sorry. We're not talking about Baby Gronk on this channel. We got GA King 313. It says Notre Dame has consecutive seasons, 2020, 2024, and 2025, with a top 5. Okay, thanks, Mark. Appreciate you, man. Notre Dame has consecutive seasons, 2024 and 2025, of top 5 Heisman finalists. 2024, the prediction is Riley Leonard and Jadarian Price. 2025, either CJ Carr or the great one, a.k.a. Jaden Greathouse. So, now that's hot. Hey, man, I asked for hot, and that is hot. Back-to-back years where Notre Dame has a top 5 Heisman finalists. First and foremost, that says Notre Dame was excellent in 2024 and 2025 if they have top 5 Heisman in both years. Obviously, highly unlikely, but hey, I like the hotness of that take, man. I like the hotness of that take. There's no IGK. He has a 32-inch vert. That's insane. It's actually insane. Now, I wasn't a Division I linebacker, obviously, but I was still a good high school linebacker that played in college, right? I think my best vert was like 28 inches, right? Which on NFL standards is very bad, very poor. But again, I was a D3, borderline D2 linebacker. Like that's what I was, right? 32 inches, guys, 300 pounds as a high school sophomore is bananas. Like that's insane. Insane explosiveness. Yeah, that's special. How that kid is not ranked as a consensus number 1 offensive tackle in 2026 and a top 2 to 3 player in the class, that's wild. That's wild. All right. We had another one hot. Here we go. Zach _32. His hot take is an opinion. Said, I think we should be going after Diabell. He should be the number 1 priority instead of Noah Grubbs and Brady Hart. Okay, well, I appreciate the hotness because I think most people in the chat would probably not agree with that one. Diabell's good. That's Raja Bell's son for people that are basketball fans out there, by the way. But I am more than happy with Noah Grubbs and Brady Hart potentially being the 2026 quarterback, right? We'll see if that's how it ends. We'll see if that is how it trends. But yeah, I believe that Notre Dame has done just fine with identifying talent at quarterback in 2026. I'm very happy. All right, PA Irish guy says Coach Washington had a plan for recruiting defensive line, but nobody knows what it is. It's a really funny statement. There was even some laughing emojis that were after that one, but I don't fully disagree with it either. That's my issue with defensive line recruiting in general, is that I'm okay having a difference of opinion if I understand why you believe the way you do and what your strategy is. That's the thing. That's the thing that has me puzzled with defensive line recruiting is just general. I feel like there isn't a concise plan, and that's kind of where you'll lose me a little bit, right? That's where you'll lose me. So hopefully they flip the scripts, but yeah, I'm very confused on the plan at times. Very confused on the plan. Jay Saxton, 1980, says, we will land Mark Zachary and Jadon Blair to finish off the secondary. We will land 2 of the top of the board linebackers. Coach Washington will land a top 100 defensive line edge, and Notre Dame will land 3 more commitments at wide receiver. A lot to dive into there. Okay, let's break this down. We will land Mark Zachary and Jadon Blair to finish off the secondary. Don't think that that's hot. I think that that is, yeah, I think that that's very possible. Very possible that happens. Second part, we will land 2 of the top board linebackers. I would sell that one probably. I think you can get one, maybe. Maybe you expand the board a little bit. I have trouble seeing like Notre Dame getting Madden Feriamo and let's say Nathaniel wubobotang. I think that would be tough. I think that would be a little bit tough. So I'm gonna sell that part. Buy the first part. The next part here, Coach Washington will land a top 100 defensive line edge, and Notre Dame will land 3 more commitments to wide receiver. Well, I think that he already did in Christopher Burgess. I think that is a top 100 level player, at least level talents. If you're talking from here on out, I will sell that in 2025. Just me right now. I will sell that unless something changes here. 3 more wide receiver commitments at wide receiver. No. Somebody else in the chat I know saw, they said something and paraphrasing slightly. They said Derek Meadows, Tanu Kynes, Javon Boggs, and I think they said Tylan Taylor. If 3 of them want to come, you take all 3. It's just not going to happen, guys. It's not going to happen. It just really isn't. I mean, we could talk again. We're going to talk about 2025 wide receiver recruiting here next after this segment, but just don't think that's going to happen ultimately. One, I don't think Notre Dame would carry 6 receivers. I think that they would find it would be difficult but doable for them to carry 5. 5 would be a great number, but I'm not sold that they would necessarily be able to make that happen. But we'll see. I could be wrong on that one. I could be wrong. But I think 3 would be very tough. If you land 3 wide receivers, that means that someone probably has to leave the class at wide receiver. I just don't think they would ever be able to get to 6. Just don't see that one happening. I'm sorry, DK, man. I'm just trying to give you good information, man. Do you want to be happy all the time or do you want the real information? I don't know. Hopefully someday both those things merge and we're happy also getting the good information. That'd be great, wouldn't it? Be fantastic. We got bracket cover 3. It says offensive line coach Joe Rudolph develops offensive line to an elite level and becomes known nationally as a top 3 offensive line coach within the next 2 years. That's the first part. I would love it. I hope that you're right. Hope that you are right about that one. First year wide receiver Logan Saldate plays so well. Second part, plays so well this fall that he breaks the 2 deep and becomes this year's Jordan Faison. I would sell that one. Just simply because, like, look, Jordan Faison played really well for Notre Dame last year. He exceeded everyone's like what we predicted for him to do as a freshman, expectations. Like no one thought that Jordan Faison was going to be what he was in 2023. No one thought it was going to happen. But a big reason, and I think we need to be honest with ourselves, the big reason that he was what he was in 2023, though, was because he needed to be. It was necessary for Jordan Faison to play. Because you had Deion Colsey hurt for part of the year. Jaden Thomas hurt for part of the year. Jaden Greathouse banged up for part of the year. I mean, there were so many injuries to this team. Braylon James was a guy that Notre Dame did not really give a chance to play in any type of role. So there was a necessity for Jordan Faison to have to play. But so I hope that Logan Saldate is ready to play. I mean, that's a different conversation. Do I predict that type of role or a type of breakout? I don't think so. Just because, because if we're projecting him to the slot, which is I think where Logan Saldate best projects, that would be saying that something happens first and foremost to Jaden Greathouse and Jordan Faison first and foremost. Like something would have to happen to them to open up those opportunities. I don't like predicting injury. I know it happens, but I don't like predicting it. Also, would Notre Dame move someone else into the slots before moving a true freshman into the slot that just got there in the summer? I don't know. All those things are kind of unknowns, so I would sell that part of the take. All right. And we had Domer Grizz. Notre Dame will land at least one more guy in the 2024 class that's not currently being talked about as a mainstream possibility. When Brian says we need to land two of these four prospect position, for example, we might land one of them and someone else. I could buy that one. I mean, look, recruiting doesn't stop, right? Like it doesn't stop. Armand Mukin was an example. Brennan Hillman was an example. There's always guys that get into the conversation late. So do I think that Chad Bowden and this staff are going to continue to evaluate players into the fall? Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. So it could happen. I think that is a possibility. I guess it's technically hot because there's just not guys that we know about yet, but it's very possible. Very possible that happens. We'll see. All right. And then we're going to Real Irish. 1988 says recruiting hot take. Next year, receiver recruiting will take a jump because of the play the receivers put on the field this year. I'm not saying that the receivers we have in the class are bad, but they're not the receivers Notre Dame actually wanted. I'm referring to Derek Meadows, Tylan Taylor, Jamie Frenches of the world. Yeah. I mean, hey, anytime you can back it up on the field, it helps, right? So because right now, what are you giving wide receiver recruits to Notre Dame? Like, so I'll put it this way: 2025 wide receiver recruits. This is the sell Notre Dame has right now. This is the sell. One, we play a lot of guys. You'll get an opportunity to play. Two, we have a offense that is about to erupt this year. And then Mike Denbrock says, hey, look what I just did at LSU. I just got two kids drafted in the top 23 picks. And that's a good, strong sell, right? It's a good, strong sell. But in order for two of those things to be accepted, you need to start showing some results, right? I mean, you need to. Notre Dame needs to show that you can take talent and turn it into production. They need to be able to show that. So, Real Irish, you need that to happen, man. You need that to happen. You need to show this year. Maybe it's Jaden Greathouse takes a breakout year. Maybe you turn a kid that was in FIU last year, Florida International, and Chris Mitchell, and he becomes one of the more productive players in college football at receiver, at least efficiency wise. Like maybe there are guys that break out. Maybe Jordan Faison breaks out. Maybe one of the freshmen takes a massive step forward and you start to see their potential. So, yeah, I think that on the field, you need to have that. You need to have that. Nathan Melton with another one says, by 2026, Notre Dame will be out recruiting Alabama and Georgia on a consistent basis. Obviously, I would sell that one. But again, I asked for hot takes, right? I'll be honest with you. And you know I don't lie to you guys. Some of them weren't that hot. They weren't that hot. I probably should have done like a hotness meter. Like that probably would have been a cooler idea. Maybe I'll do that for next time. But Nathan, that's a hot one. I would not predict Notre Dame to outpace Georgia and Alabama consistently in 2 years. Would not do that. That's quite an ascension. If it happens, awesome. But it's a big projection, obviously. It's a big projection. I think this might be our last one, unless there was one that was sent in late. Nathan Milton says, Notre Dame recruiting will start to decrease in numbers total in the class starting in 2026 due to the decrease of players leaving for the portal. That's actually an intriguing thought, right? Is that numbers are always competing against one another. We always project numbers in classes based upon who we think is going to be leaving after the next year, right? So for like 2025 numbers, how many Notre Dame takes is very dependent upon who we're rejecting to leave, right? Like, the guys that are going to be gone. Riley Leonard's, no more eligibility. Tosh Baker, no more eligibility. Howard Cross, Riley Mills, no more eligibility. Like, we know those guys are definitely going to be defections, but you also had to have a inkling of, and you have these conversations even before the season sometimes, right? Of like, so I'm sure Notre Dame has already talked to, I'm sure Marcus Freeman or somebody else has already had a conversation to Benjamin Morrison of like, hey man, I know that you're not going to be making a decision anytime soon, but like, where's your head at in case you do have a really good year and you get the feedback that you want from an NFL draft perspective? Like, most likely leaving early, not really interested in it, or to be determined. I mean, those conversations happen, guys. I'll tell you this. I work in the NFL draft space. I have for a long time. There are a lot of players that no matter if they have a great final year or a subpar final year, they made the decision that they're entering the draft before the season even started. Okay. There's a player that was drafted in the first round this year that was sort of unknown in NFL draft spaces before the year that had already decided before he even had his breakout year in 2023 that he was entering the draft. Had already decided it. He didn't like school. Now, obviously, that isn't going to be as big an issue at Notre Dame because there was a reason you came to Notre Dame, partly, right? And it's the education aspect. So it's not oh man, I can't go to school anymore. I'm tired of it. Doesn't usually happen at Notre Dame. That's usually other places that you didn't really want to go to school to begin with in the forefront. But yeah, those conversations always happen. So could it have an impact on numbers? Sure. Yeah, absolutely could have an impact on numbers. I think that is a very safe assumption to make. How much? That one I don't know the answer to, but we'll see very shortly. And it looks like we may have had a couple more. Oh yeah, a couple more came in. Guys, man, you guys are cool. You guys are cool people. Nathan Milton also said, wasn't Quinyon Mitchell. If that was your guess, Brandon, was not Quinyon Mitchell. Quinyon Mitchell actually had a really good 2022 season. Really good 2022 season. So it was not Quinyon. It's not Quinyon. Think of a guy that had a massive breakout in 2023 that no one talked about much before the year. That's going to lead you more towards the answer there. And if you guess them in the chat, I'm not going to say anything. So yeah, because you don't let out sourcing. You don't let it out. But no, it's not Quinyon Mitchell. Nathan Milton. In the next 3 Notre Dame classes, there will be at least one surprise signee. It's not hot at all, Nathan. Every single year we got guys signed that we didn't really think in the beginning were going to be guys, right? That Notre Dame would land. I remember Jayden Osbury was one for me. It was like, Notre Dame's not going to get Jayden Osbury. And then all of a sudden things started heating up. You're like, oh, he actually likes Notre Dame. Cool. Jayden Osbury. Nice. Brandon Loptu was dynamic in 2022, man. Dynamic. He almost entered the 2023 NFL draft. Man, Brandon Plesner is a terrible guesser in the chat, guys. Terrible. Obviously joking with you. Jay Stockton, 1980. Notre Dame will win at least one playoff game, which will springboard their 2026 class to a top 3 class. Man, I hope you're right. That's all I'll say. I hope you're right. Oh, Nathan, you meant on signing day. That would be wild. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, if that happened, that'd be super hot because that's very hard. Dude, that just doesn't happen anymore. With all the different recruiting platforms and crystal balls and predictions and all that type of stuff. But that does not happen very often. Not very often, especially not at Notre Dame. So that would be a shock. That would be very hot. Yeah, Brandon, you stink at this, man. You stink. You stink at this guessing thing. I hope Notre Dame wins the playoff game, though. I hope they win a playoff game. I hope they make a run. If they do, I am just so interested to see how much it just catapults recruiting. Take it a big step forward. We'll see, though. We'll see. And then last one from JG Y-Town says, the offensive line will be mostly underclassmen next year because of recruiting. Mostly underclassmen next year because of recruiting. So, wait. So I guess we're not talking about 2024, right? Because I feel like 2024 we have a good pulse of who the offensive line is most likely going to be. Ashton Craig at center, Billy Schrouth at guard, Charles Jagasaw, and then we have battle at right tackle with probably Tosh Baker leading as of now, and then we have a guard of Pat Coogan and Rocco Spindler, right? So I guess I'll sell it. I mean, if we're talking about 2025, I think it's going to be similar, right? But 2025, you're going to have Jagasaw, who would be a junior at that point. You're going to have Ashton Craig, who would be a senior. You're going to have Billy Schrouth, if he comes back, as a senior. And then maybe Gerby as a sophomore. And then we'll know. I don't know. We'll see who the other guard or tackle is at that point. So I'll sell that one, but we'll see what happens. I mean, offensive line is such an interesting one because that's not typically a place, and it happens. It's happened at Notre Dame. I mean, we saw it with Blake Fisher, for instance. It happens at other places. But usually, offensive linemen need needs some time, right? And Brandon, it's a great question. I would not consider a redshirt junior a upperclassman. I mean, I would not consider them an underclassman. They're a 4-year player. They're a senior, right? So yeah, yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't consider it, but some great ones there, guys. Let's get to a couple of these super chats, and then we're going to get into our 2025 wide receiver talk and the 2026 quarterback talk. It's probably going to be a little bit smaller, but yeah. We had first one from Aiden Benami, who says info on Jaden Wiggins, defensive line, Florida commit. Also, Colts fan here having a debate. RR, I say Keon Coleman, and my other buddies like A.D. Mitchell. Who would you take? Well, Aiden, first and foremost, man, thank you so much for the super chat. It's always very much appreciated, my friend. Always. So, Jalen Wiggins, who's committed to Florida in the 2025 class, listed 6'5", listed 230 plus pounds. Look, he has a official visit, and he has been committed to Florida since January, Wiggins. But he does have official visits set to other schools, including Stanford, right? Including Stanford. So we'll see if he sets one up to Notre Dame. I know, again, Notre Dame has been working on that one for a little bit now with Wiggins. It's a good sign that he's taking the official to Stanford. That shows him that obviously academics are important to him in some capacity, right? So if he sets up a visit to Notre Dame, we'll get a lot more into that one. But it really is going to depend on if that happens or not, because they're not going to land him, obviously, without an official visit or him visiting campus in general. So we'll see. But to my knowledge, there hasn't been anything that's been set up yet. If it does, then we'll start talking about Mr. Wiggins, man. We'll start talking about him. We'll start talking about him. All right. Let's go. It's not a White Claw. You guys chill out, man. Look, it's just an energy drink, Celsius, right? I don't drink on the job, guys. Don't drink on the job. I need a little bit of energy, okay? You know, I got 2 kids now, man. Got 2 kids. So people are tired sometimes. People are tired sometimes. All right, let's go to. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. I didn't have the second part of the question. Don't want to skip over that one. So the debate here, and it's actually a real life debate. People had this talking a lot, okay? So A.D. Mitchell, Adonai Mitchell, was a Georgian player originally, transferred to Texas, or Keon Coleman, who was at Michigan State originally, transferred to Florida State. I like Keon Coleman better. Okay. I like him better. I think that there is untapped potential for Keon. I think that right now Keon Coleman just focuses on being stronger and more physical than dudes. But I think that when I watch him play, there are moments where you see flexibility and you see upside with route running. So I think there's just tremendous upside. He's a 6'3" plus guy, 215 pounds, that they throw back there on punts as a punt returner because he's such a gifted athlete. I think that there is tremendous upside. And he's one of the youngest players in this draft. He was only 20 years old when he was drafted, right? So I think the upside is tremendous with Keon. And I don't really like A.D. Mitchell much. I think I put on Twitter one time, and I believe this. A.D. Mitchell graded out decently high for me because he is a very talented kid. 6'2" plus, long arms, can run days. Very, very talented player. But one, he reminds me a little bit of, have you guys seen Moneyball? Has anybody seen Moneyball in here? He reminds me of the part where Ben Affleck's like, if he's such a good hitter, why doesn't he hit well? And that is what I think of A.D. Mitchell as a receiver. Everyone talks about all the upside and how talented he is. And then I look at the production and I'm like, but guys, why isn't he dominating? He's a historical athlete. Why is he not better than he is as a 4th-year player? We're not talking about a kid that's a freshman. I'm also not talking about Keon Coleman that was 20 years old this year. Young guy. This is a guy that's a little bit of an older guy, right? I mean, he's only 22. It's not like he's old, but he's still a little bit older comparative to the Keon Coleman conversation. And I just hear all the time about how special of a talent he is, right? How special and how much upside he has and everything. And I'm just like, well, guy, why isn't he better though? I believe, and don't quote me on this, I believe he had 7 or 8 games this year where he had 50 or less yards receiving in a game. I'm missing it with him. And then you start hearing more and more conversation of why he's falling into the middle portion of the second rounds because if you watch his film, he doesn't play hard all the time. He isn't consistent. There's something missing there. Okay. There's something missing there. And I believe that he has upside as a departmentalized receiver that can win vertically and can make some catches down the field. But I do believe that there is something missing with him. And I can't really put 100% of a finger on it. But this comes back to, I know people are going to make fun of me for this. It's fine. You can make fun of me. Scouting is an art, not a science. There's data elements and analytics that are part of the scouting process. Absolutely. But there is also a point of you just see it, right? And you can't 100% put your finger on it, but there's something missing there. That's why the character matters so much. That's why these interviews matter so much. Because if I looked at Zach Wilson, I'll use Zach Wilson as an example, right? Zach Wilson physically, good size for the position, cannon for an arm, really smooth athlete, had really good production his last year. On the surface, you'd be like, oh, probably has a chance to be good. But then you hear things and you talk with them and you interview people around him and you're just like, there's something not there. Can't really put my finger on it, but something's missing there. And I think that is what we miss a little bit, right? It's not all film based. Film matters most. Eye in the sky doesn't lie. But the eye in the sky also doesn't tell who a person is all the time. It can give glimpses. But there's something missing with that kid. There's just something missing. I don't know what it is. Can't put up my 100% my finger on it, but there's something missing there. Okay. There's something missing. And I had said, and I really believe this, I would let somebody else draft AD Mitchell if I was a team. If I was a team that was drafting and he was in the range of where my scouting report said he should go, I would still probably not draft him. I would move back. I would take someone else. I would just, something missing there. Something missing. I can't put my finger on it. So I would take Keon Coleman. That would be my guy. Yes, that would be my guy. And we had a last one here from Anthony Solomon who said, thanks for the show today. You're welcome, sir. Thank you for being here, Anthony, if you still are. It's very much appreciated. Well, guys, I thought that conversation was going to go about an hour. We're an hour and 47 minutes in. And I want to talk about 2025 wide receiver recruiting and 2026 quarterback recruiting. So don't go anywhere. Going to take a quick sip of the drink here. We're going to get to the next section here. Okay. All right. Relax. I get it. We're going to try to fix the mic, man. We're going to try to fix the mic. Chill out on me. We're going to talk that stuff next year, though, guys. Before we do, if you could just hit that like button for me, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Hit that notification bell if you haven't already. If you're listening to me on your favorite podcast platform, 5-star reviews are very much appreciated. Make sure you also are subscribed over there. Go to the message board at burress-breakdown.com for all your latest recruiting and team intel. We're going to talk 2025 wide receiver recruiting next here on the Irish Breakdown podcast. All right, folks, let's talk 2025 wide receiver recruiting. Okay, so we're going to do this. It's not White Claw. Chill out. I'm just kidding. Celsius, man. Celsius sponsoring the podcast. Actually, Celsius, if all right, Paul. I get it, man. I get it. There's something I can do. I'm doing a solo show here, sir. Sorry. If Celsius wants to come sponsor the podcast, man, please DM me on Twitter at Rise and Drill. We can talk it out, man. We can talk it out. Oh, I know. Hey, trust me. Beefeater, you have to worry about me not being able to take a joke, sir. You should know that. You met me. You should know that. All right, let's go to wide receiver recruiting, guys. 2025. I'm going to break this up into a couple different categories here. Okay, a couple different categories. First one, we're going to talk about where the class is right now with the 3 wide receiver recruits. We're going to talk about the players that are still on the board that Notre Dame is that is continuing to recruit. Okay. And then I'm going to talk about what it means for Notre Dame. Okay. I want to talk about what it means for Notre Dame potentially. Just going to get this one out of the way before we start this conversation because we're going to get super serious here, Lucky Ducks. It's on a White Claw. Appreciate you, the Lucky Ducks. Thank you for the super chat, man. Thank you for the super chat. I wouldn't be caught dead with a White Claw in this hand, okay? I wouldn't be caught dead. Wouldn't be caught dead. All right, wide receiver recruiting, okay? Wide receiver recruiting. Let's focus here. Where the class is, who's still on the board, what it means for Notre Dame. You guys are funny. You guys are funny dudes. Funny dudes. So 3 wide receivers that are committed to Notre Dame. I'm going to break this down one by one. And then we're going to talk about the wide receivers on the board, any latest intel that I have there, and what it could mean for Notre Dame down the stretch. Okay. Lucky Ducks, I respect you, sir. I respect you. Respect you. So, you guys got salty going, man. You got salty going in the chat. Salty's about to get kicked out. I don't know why. Just because I feel like it. Just because I can. Because I have the power. I have the power. All right. So wide receiver recruiting. Back on task here. Back on task. Leave me alone, guys. ADHD. You know this. I'm at almost 2 hours in. You know this was going to happen. At some point, I was going to get distracted. Congratulations. You guys have done it. Congratulations. Wide receiver recruiting. Green Man, I still don't know what you're talking about, man. I still don't know what you're talking about. For 2 hours, guys, no exaggeration, for 2 hours, I have just been reading Green Man, putting things in the chat, and I still have no idea what he is saying. For 2 hours, I have no idea what he's saying. But he's not saying anything disrespectful or anything, so I'm not going to kick him out of the chat. But I have no idea what you're saying, Green Man. No idea. It's actually making me laugh. Like, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's amusing to me, though. So I respect you for being here, but I zero idea what you're saying. Zero. You were talking about sumo wrestlers at one point. San Diego State or Central Florida. I don't know what we're talking about. I'm so confused, but I respect you for being here. I'm happy you're here. So happy. Okay, back on tap. Back on tap. Wide receiver recruiting. The first wide receiver, I know, man. First wide receiver to commit to Notre Dame in the 2025 class. We're going to talk about this chronologically. Was Elijah Burress. Okay, Elijah Burress, wide receiver here in the state of New Jersey, out of DePaul Catholic in Wayne, New Jersey. 6'1", 170 pounds, son of Plexio Burress, who was obviously a great wide receiver at Michigan State and was very good in the NFL for a few years for the Pittsburgh Steelers and New York Giants. Won a Super Bowl with the New York Giants, at least one, maybe 2. So here's the thing with Elijah Burress. And I know there are some people that have a much different opinion than me. I know that Brian is one of them that sees Elijah different than I do. I know there are people that I respect in the chat on the message board that also disagree with me on it. It's fine. Respect is a two-way street. Two-way. I respect your take. You respect mine. Then we'll see who's right in the end. Okay. I don't dislike Elijah Burress from the perspective of the art of playing the wide receiver position. Okay. I think that he is a very, very good route runner. I think he is technically refined, and I think that it is very clear that he's been around football for a long time. Very clear. One of the better technicians in the class, as far as just pure route running that I've seen. One of the better technicians in the class. Here's my problem with Elijah Burress. One, similar to the A.D. Mitchell conversation I talked about. If he is so talented, why isn't he productive? And I know that some people are going to say he plays with another high-level Division I, blah, 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 blah. And I get it. I get it. It's going to take some snaps away. I get it, man. I get it. But he had 400 yards receiving last year as a junior in high school in a good league. I mean, North Jersey football is legit. It's legitimately good talents there, right? But Wasn't very productive. 6'1", 170 pounds. I I'm just missing it as far as production's one thing, but here's where I stand on the whole projection thing for wide receiver. Okay, here's the thing. Two sides usually to projection at wide receiver. One, this really big, physically impressive kid has no technique and needs to learn to play wide receiver. Or the other side is that guy knows how to play wide receiver, but we hope that he takes a jump physically on the next level, right? His body gets a little bigger, gets a little more explosive. Hopefully that works, right? Hopefully that happens. The problem with the second option there is it's less likely to happen. Okay. Usually the breakout are the guys that have this tremendous athleticism and upside, and the technique comes because you guys hear me talk about teachables versus unteachables all the time, right? Teachable things, technique, getting off the line, hand fighting at the top of a route, getting in and out of breaks. I can work on all that stuff. Work on all of it because it's technique stuff, it's footwork, it's hand play. All those things I can fix, right? All those things. Unteachables. I can't teach a kid to be taller than he is. I can't teach a kid to be really, really fast. You can improve speed, but you can't turn a kid that's not fast into a guy that is super fast, right? Like there is a limitation to how much you can improve that area. The God given things are harder to replicate or improve upon. The technique stuff, I can always improve that stuff. So it makes me worried. It makes me worried that I have a kid in Elijah Burress that is 6'1", 170 pounds, not an incredibly big kid, not incredibly powerful, not a great talent, not a great physical talent. And I am hoping that he takes this massive step forward physically. That makes me settled. Because I would hope that the kid that's a refined route runner is an ultra productive dude, right? Ultra productive. Cooper Perry, very technically advanced for his age. Cooper Perry, not a tremendous athlete, but you know what Cooper Perry is in the state of Arizona? Really productive. Super productive. Because the skill set matches the technical prowess. They match. Okay? They match. That's my worry about Elijah Burress. Next guy to commit to Notre Dame, Sean Terry out of Ironton, Ohio. A kid that I like. I like a lot. Sean Terry is very good in space, can run the football on jets and reverses, can return punts, also plays dang good defense as well. He does everything for Ironton. Like him a lot. As a slot receiver, gadget type, space player, I think he brings a dynamic to the Notre Dame offense they need more of, right? Not every wide receiver that I bring in has to be a 1,000-yard receiver, has to be a guy that is number one, but he can fill a role that I need. I like Sean Terry. I do. I think that he can be a very big asset to a wide receiver room. Big asset. The problem with Sean Terry, because I was completely fine with that take. When I thought about it deep, I was like, okay, I'm cool. I got it. Because one, productive in everything he does. I know he plays at the lower level in Ohio. I get that. Productive in everything he does on the football field, and also had a massive offer list, man. Again, like Oregon, Michigan, and all these cats, I don't think they'd be pushing for Sean Terry if they didn't think Sean Terry was talented. And offer lists matter to me. Stars don't matter as much. Offer lists matter. I need a very impressive one. So I think that he brings dynamic to the field. I think he can fulfill a role. So I was cool with the Sean Terry thing. But the one thing that troubles me is right now, I would say Sean Terry is the best receiver that you have in this class, in my opinion. Some people disagree with that. That's fine. In my opinion, I think he's the best receiver you have in this class. And that's an issue. Because I don't think Sean Terry's ever going to be a high volume receiver. I don't see him being a 70, 80 catch guy. I see him being 40 for 700, run some sweeps, reverses, return punts. Like he can be a gadget dude for you, no doubt. But I don't ever see him being a number one option in a passing game. So I just think that he is a guy that's a depth piece in a class potentially. That's what I think he is. I think he's a really good one. Really good one. Jerome Bettis Jr. I don't want to stay on that one too long. Okay. Jerome Bettis Jr. Big body, strong, great hands. I just think he's a depth piece at best. Just at best. I think he maybe plays special teams for a long time, and maybe he provides you some solid situational play as a role player. Cool. Right now, you are missing star power. You have depth. You don't have star power. You don't have it. And I would argue that you might need two guys that have some star power because I'm just not in love with wide receiver recruiting is today. So that's the class currently. Elijah Burress, really good route runner, high floor kid. Cool. That's fine. Sean Terry, gadget player, not a high volume receiver, but I like him in part of a room. And then you have Jerome Bettis Jr. that you're hoping takes a step forward as far as athleticism. That's what you're hoping for. That's your class right now. With that being said, so actually, let me rephrase. So as of today, there were a lot of questions with this class. A lot of questions. Now, that being said, there is potential answers on the board. There are. But Notre Dame needs to make big pushes and close down the stretch on 1 to 2 of the players. Hopefully 2. Hopefully you can make 2 work. Okay. Hopefully you can. So here's the board as it currently stands. And we'll talk about where they are and where it's trending and all those types of things as part of this conversation. Okay. Number 1, Derek Meadows, wide receiver, Las Vegas, Nevada, Bishop Gorman. 6'5 plus, listed around 6'6 now by a couple platforms, 200 plus pounds. Thank you, DK. I hope you're not being sarcastic because my mic is messing up because I'm a little self-conscious about this right now, DK. But I appreciate you, sir. I appreciate you so much. I have Jason. I'm going to talk about him. Okay? That's going to be a part of this conversation too. Derek Meadows is a guy that every Notre Dame fan knows because he has been on the board for a long time, and he is the priority in this class. He is. Because I just talked about a couple higher floors in the class already, but there's a lack of ceiling to this group. There's a lack of ceiling. And there is no wide receiver nationally that you can argue has a higher ceiling than Derek Meadows. Not saying that he is the best receiver in the class. I'm definitely not saying that. There are several receivers I consider higher than Derek Meadows. But if we're talking about if everyone hits their ceilings, who is the best? Could be Derek Meadows. Could very well be. Now, he's a wild card because there's also technical refinement that needs to happen. But again, back to my original point, I can teach those things. And if he's a hard worker, I think that he has tremendous upside and ability to be a great player, potentially. No sarcasm. Thank you, DK. Salty, you're about to get thrown into the stable, man. About to put you out the pasture, sir. Things seem fine with Derek Meadows on the surface, okay? He's talked to Notre Dame consistently. He's coming back for an official visit. All those things sound great on the surface, but I'm here to tell you guys, and I know Brian put something about it a few days ago, and I've been talking about this a little bit more specifically the last few weeks, but I'm really starting to get worried about the Derek Meadows thing. Really starting to get worried because it's not even so much about the attention he's gotten since he went down to Battle Miami and balled out and then got the offers from Tennessee and Alabama and a bunch of different schools, right? I wasn't that worried about it. Wasn't really that worried about it. But as time is kind of playing a little bit and it's continuing to move on, I am getting more and more worried about the Derek Meadows thing because I feel like it's trending more for other schools, which means it's trending away from others. And that's how I kind of feel right now. Now, that being said, Notre Dame has a chance. And no, Notre Dame was not interested. Well, Notre Dame was interested in Cooper Perry. They just didn't prioritize Cooper Perry. Well, we'll put it like that, right? So they moved on to other people, basically. Was kind of where it was, Phil. So I think that it is trending more in the favor of other teams with Derek Meadows and trending away from Notre Dame. Now, they have time. They have an official visit. They've been on him a long time. They're not out of it, but I think that they are definitely playing a little from behind now, is kind of how I feel it, right? So I think Jason may have said that he feels like it's Alabama is his gut. Alabama is certainly in the running because previous relationship with Kalen DeBoer, Alabama, just that brand in general, appealing, what they've been putting out a wide receiver the last few years, what Kalen DeBoer just put out wide receivers in this draft. I mean, he had Roma Dunze top 10, Jalen Polk second round, Jaden McMillan third round, right? So like he's got some stay power of wide receiver projection to the NFL level. So I just think that it's a little bit trending away from Derek Meadows. It's just kind of my pulse on it. Again, I think Derek's interested in Notre Dame, but I think that it's going to be very important how they close down the stretch. Tylan Taylor, wide receiver of Geneva Community. Again, he's all 2025 wide receiver recruits. Tylan, again, says all the right things. He visited Notre Dame again for like the 5th time a few weeks ago. He's anticipated to be back for an official visit. Everything seems fine on the surface. I just think, again, some schools are trending in a better direction than Notre Dame. If you gun to my head, I would say it's Georgia. I know Archer was in the chat at one point saying Ohio State may have had some move there. I don't know. All I know is I feel like it's trending away from Notre Dame, and it has been trending away from Notre Dame for a little bit here. Okay. And those are probably your two most long-lasting targets on the board that you felt like you were in a good spot with at certain times. And there's been a lot that's going on along the way, right? We just had a season where there wasn't a ton of wide receiver production. Also, you obviously made a coaching change at wide receiver coach with going from Chancey Stuckey to Mike Brown. So there was some things that got in the way of wide receiver crew, and there's no doubt. But so things at the top, I think, are a little bit of an uneasiness. Now, there has been some positivity on other ends, right? First and foremost, Javon Boggs out of Cocoa, previously committed to Ohio State. He visited for the first time a couple weeks ago, and I know that he's planning to potentially take an official visit back to Notre Dame as well. Things are trending pretty well with Notre Dame there, right? Like they have captured his attention and getting him on campus. They definitely made themselves a contender for Javon Boggs down the road. That being said, though, still a fight that's going to have to happen down the stretch. Because that was one where you didn't get in until I think they offered him in February, maybe a little bit after that. So, I mean, they weren't in early on Javon Boggs, right? So you are still working from behind a little bit. And now you have to fight and claw to eventually get him. The other guy, Tanuk Hines, who's out of Decaney in Houston, Texas. Notre Dame, I think, really gained some momentum when he visited campus a few weeks ago. When he visited campus, I think they really showcased that this was a place that he could thrive potentially. So Tanuk Hines, I think, again, things are trending in a good direction there. Once again, though, you got to get back to campus. You got to fight until the end because go look at Tanuk Hines' offer list, guys. It's a good list. I think Notre Dame will have a chance in the end, but they're going to have to really fight and claw till the ends. They're going to fight and claw. And I don't think that Javon Boggs and Brady Hart are necessarily a package deal, Ray. I wouldn't say it that firmly. Would Brady Hart coming to Notre Dame help recruit Javon Boggs? Yes, probably. But I wouldn't say necessarily they're I could see Javon going somewhere different than Brady Hart. I don't think it's a package deal. I do not. But yeah, we'll see how that trends though overall. And then the last two names to know for different reasons, okay? Last two names to know. Owen Mills, Maryland, McDonough School athlete, Brandon Finney. Notre Dame has been in contact with him, guys. At this point, I just don't know if I would make it. I think it's too bold to say that they're a realistic option for Brandon Finney currently. We'll see if I'm wrong about that. But then the other guy who Jason was talking about in the chat a couple minutes ago. The last guy is Laverne, California, Bonita wide receiver Dylan Robinson, who could also play defensive back on the next level, 6'2", 190 pounds. That's a wild card. A little bit too early to say. Initial reaction was very excited about the offer. We'll see if things trend, but like right now, he is just way too ahead of ourselves that that could be a realistic option at all right now. So that's kind of where the board is right now. So kind of to recap real quick, things kind of are trending away with Derek Meadows and Tylan Taylor, in my opinion. You're trending in pretty solid territory with Tanu Kynes and Javon Boggs, but there is finishing that needs to happen, and you're still fighting the good fights. This is not a foregone conclusion that either one of those guys end up in class. And then you have a couple wild cards on the board right now, and Brandon Finney, who I just would not count on, and then Dylan Robinson, who's a new offer to the board only last week. So that's kind of where the board is, right? So in order to have a really good class, you need to either flip the script with one of the top two and close on one of the guys that you've been trending with, which is possible. But again, the board's becoming so small now and so absolute that you're running out of options here, right? Like you really have to kind of, it's not an inside straight, but you really need to knock it out the park down the stretch with a couple of those guys, man. And all those four, who's the main guy? I mean, highest upside, it's Derek Meadows for me. Derek Meadows, I think, has the highest upside of that group. Conversation after that would be between Tylan Taylor and Dylan Robinson, in my opinion. I need to watch a little bit more of Brandon Finney. I was watching him more on the defensive side of the ball because that's where a lot of his offers have come from. But I really like Dylan Robinson a lot if that's someone Notre Dame ends up pushing for. Tanu Kynes for his athleticism. And then Javon Boggs will probably be last on that list, Ray, but it's not a shot at Javon Boggs because Javon Boggs also has one of the highest floors in this class, man. I mean, the guy just had like 23 touchdowns this year, dude. Like 1,500 yards. He's a really good player. If they end up with Javon Boggs, I would be so excited. I think he's a really good football player. So I'd be very happy with it. So why does this matter and what does this mean is kind of the last part of this conversation. One, Notre Dame wide receiver recruiting has been on a bet and been in a better spot the last couple of years and has been on an uptick. You need to continue that uptick. You need to continue that momentum. You need to. You need to continue to get talented receivers in the door because your quarterback play your quarterback talent in the room has improved. Your offensive line is always going to be good. Your running back talent has been improved, especially since Dylan McCullough came on the team. So every other part of your offense has been very talented or has been restocked in certain areas. But wide receiver is still one that you just need to show consistently that you can get talented dudes in the room every single year. That's a question. The other part of it is Mike Brown as a first-year wide receiver coach. I don't know what he's going to be able to do as a recruiter. It's such a major wild card. It would ease my mind exponentially if he shows me that he can be a high-level recruiter. Yeah, Tristan Haynes could play wide receiver in college, but as of now, we just envision him as a cornerback target for Notre Dame. But yes, he could, 100%. So I just think that right now, yes, Antoine, yep, he is teammates of Brady Hart. We kind of hit on that a couple minutes ago. But yep, he is a teammates of Brady Hart. But Mike Brown, it would be really nice to ease my mind a little bit, right? To ease my mind of how good of a recruiter he could be. Would be a big thing for me personally and big thing for a lot of people, I think, just to kind of ease your minds in the recruiting aspect of everything. And the last one, and I think this one is probably the most important one for me personally. Well, actually, second most important one. You have a big time talent quarterback in 2025. Duce Knight, guys, again, to reiterate this, he needs development as a quarterback and to play the position. But we're talking about a kid that is 6'4.5" plus, 210 plus pounds, that just had a 6'8" high jump, a 24-foot long jump, just about, has had 40 plus inch vertical, and is running like the 4.5s and the 40, and has a cannon for an arm. You cannot waste that pitch. You can't waste it. You have one of the top talents at quarterback in the 2025 class. You can't waste that momentum and not fill up the wide receiver room. Because we know Duce was going to recruit, man. He's going to recruit his butt off. And he has been recruiting his butt off. You can't lose the momentum of that. You can't lose the momentum. You had the momentum in 2024. You got CJ Carr, and then you got Cam Williams, and then you got Micah Gilbert. Then you got Lucas Eldate. Awesome. Great. You can't lose momentum if you keep getting great quarterbacks in this class. Duce Knight should have been an easy track to 3 to 4 dynamic wide receivers, because who wouldn't want to play with that guy over there? Who wouldn't want to play with him? He's a magnificent talent and has a energetic and authentic personality. Who wouldn't want to play with that dude? Who wouldn't want to play with him? And right now, I'm worried about wide receiver recruiting. I'm so worried about it. I'm so worried about it. Now, if you get Derek Meadows and Javon Boggs down the stretch, or you get Javon Boggs and Tylan Taylor, or you get Javon Boggs and even Tanuk Hines down the stretch, then I feel better about it. I feel better about it. I'm okay for now. I'm okay. But you cannot waste momentum. That is the worst thing you can do in recruiting. It's the worst thing you could do. You have gotten back-to-back years of Kenny Minchie, CJ Carr, and Duce Knight. 2023, you were able to get, and I know that it didn't pan out fully, but you were able to get Jaden Greathouse, Braylon James, Rico Flores, and KK Smith without having a quarterback in the class for the longest time, without having it. And then 2024, you get your quarterback in the class, and you're able to get 5-star Cam Williams, arguably. You're able to get Micah Gilbert. You're able to get Logan Saldate. Great. And then the next year, you get Duce Knight, and wide receiver recruiting falls off the face of the earth? Guys, that can't happen. It can't happen. It's inexcusable. 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 Whatever reason it is, and I don't put all the blame on Mike Brown. I do think that the previous wide receiver coach set the class back a little bit. I 100% believe that it did. But you have to recover, man. You can't. You can't, guys. You can't. I don't want to go through a year where we're like, man, Duce is dynamic, bro. And he's so talented, but he doesn't have the guys around him to make plays. Enough plays. I don't want to ever have that problem. I don't want to have that issue. Fix it. Close. It's closing time. No excuses. It's closing time. Go finish it. Go finish it. Go finish it. They have a chance. It's not end all be all. It's not the end of the world. We're not on National Signing Day with a bad wide receiver class and we're just revisiting it. If that happens, I'll be critical then too. I'm critical of what I've seen so far. That being said, they have a chance to fix it. Fix it. They have a chance to trends, and they're retrending with a couple of really talented wide receivers, finish it down the stretch, and we're good, man. We're good. We're good. That's wide receiver recruiting. 2026 quarterback talk to end the show. Before you leave, actually, don't leave because I have another segment coming up. Don't leave. Before we transition to that segment, though, please hit that like button for me. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast. Hit that notification bell. Listen to me on your favorite podcast platform, whether that's Apple, Spotify, or anything in between. Make sure you hit a 5-star review. Make sure you leave a review and subscribe to that podcast, boards.irishrecruiting.com for latest recruiting and team intel. And I'll be back talking quarterbacks 2026 next on the Irish Breakdown Podcast. So unless you live under a rock, you know that there has been a couple crystal balls or whatever the other prediction stuff's called on 2026 quarterback out of Lake Mary's in the state of Florida. That is Noah Grubbs. So I just want to talk about quarterback recruiting in 2026 as it stands, what we should expect moving forward, and just kind of update everything that's going on, right? Because obviously quarterback recruiting in any given recruiting class is always a very important topic because there is no position in football, and I would argue in sports, that is important as a quarterback is for their respective football team, okay? So let's talk quarterback recruiting. We have been telling you guys now for a month and a half, probably, at least a month, I would say. There are two quarterbacks that I think stand out more than any. Okay, so earlier in the offseason, we talked about three quarterbacks in the class that we felt like Notre Dame was in a good spot with at the time. Those quarterbacks were Noah Grubbs out of Lake Mary's, Brady Hart out of Cocoa in the state of Florida, and the other one was out of Folsom, California, Rider Lions. Okay, so here's where we currently are. Notre Dame is actually, Gino Guidugli is actually out to Folsom today to see Rider Lions. And people have asked me on the board, and I kind of want to put this out in the universe. Where are things with Lions? And we'll talk about the other two. Rider Lions is still very high on Notre Dame. And Notre Dame has still been talking to Rider Lions consistently. And we know this for a fact that if Rider Lions called today and wanted to come to Notre Dame, they would take his commitment, to our knowledge. They would take his commitment. They like Rider Lions a lot. He is the younger brother of Walker Lyons. That was the 2023 tight end recruit to USC that is currently serving a mission. Here is the issue, though. Okay, here's the issue. Notre Dame's in a good spot with Rider Lions. Rider Lions likes Notre Dame a lot. You've talked about visiting potentially this summer and during the season as well. The problem is that Notre Dame is trending so well with the other two quarterbacks I listed that you just might be in a situation where one of those are going to want to commit sooner rather than later. And Rider Lions is not in a rush, and he never has been a rush. He hasn't set up any visits this offseason, to my knowledge. He definitely hasn't set out to Notre Dame because he's been focused on playing his other sports. He had a really good basketball season, for instance, was a second-team all-conference, I believe, or second-team all-area, something like that. And he is just kind of one of those kids that is going to let the process play out, and he'll commit probably before senior year is more than likely when he's going to do his thing, right? So he's not going to commit before his junior year, more than likely. And that's fine. And I respect that so much because it's his process. Do it when you feel the best. Do your research, do your process, and figure out your path. Cool, Ryder. Perfect, man. Great kid, by the way. Great kid. Really talented player as well. If you ask me who's my favorite of the three from just a playing perspective, it would probably be Rider Lions. Probably. I really like Rider Lions a lot. But I just don't think that the timelines are going to mesh with where Notre Dame is quarterback recruiting wise and where Rider Lions is. I just don't think the windows are going to mesh necessarily. And here's the issue. And here's the other part is that if Rider Lions was so much better than everyone else on the board, I think Notre Dame would be willing just to wait and just see what happens. But I don't think they view it that way, right? I think that right now, Notre Dame would take a commitment from any of those three. If Noah Grubbs called a day and commit to Notre Dame, I think they would take Noah Grubbs. If Brady Hart wanted to commit today, definitely they would take him. If Rider Lions wanted to commit today, I think they would take him. I think that they would take all three of those players and they'd be very happy for much different reasons, at least from a playing perspective. Now, latest with Noah Grubbs, and I'll have a in-depth kind of interview with him as far as the latest and how things are going and where Notre Dame stands and all those great things, right? Notre Dame is pushing hard for both those players. Noah Grubbs has told us and Brian Smith in the past that Notre Dame is recruiting him harder than any other school, right? Any other school. And if I had to make a prediction for today, I would predict Noah Grubbs to select Notre Dame whenever he chooses a school. I would do that 100%. The question is going to be time. When is the timing going to work, right? When are you going to make that decision? He has said that he would be open to something this offseason, but he also said that when he's committed, and he doesn't want to go back on that decision. So he wants to make sure he collects all the data, sees everything he needs to see, and make a firm decision because he is committed when he is committed, for his words for words. Brady Hart is in a similar situation where if you ask me again, if Brady Hart had to make a decision today, who do I think that he would choose? It would be Notre Dame. Yeah, it would 100% be Notre Dame. But, well, actually, we'll say, and Brady Hart has also said that he would be willing, that he is aiming potentially to make a commitment this offseason before his junior year. Because he talked to us, he actually came on the podcast and he talked about wanting to be early in a class to help recruit it because he understands how important a quarterback is to the recruiting process. He understands that. Great. Now, DK, don't start. Don't start, DK. Don't start, man. Now that leads to the natural question of, I'm telling you, the Notre Dame's in a very good place with Brady Hart and Brady Hart's and Noah Grubbs. I'm telling you that both players have talked about committing before the season. So the natural question is, who's going to commit first? Who's it going to be? Is anyone ready? When are they going to be ready? When are they ready to pull the trigger? Those are the questions that we still need answers to. Okay. But I'm here to confidently say, I believe Notre Dame's in a very good spot with both those kids. Very good spot with both those kids. I don't know who's going to commit first. I don't know who's going to pull the trigger first. They both have similar timelines. They both have similar wants to be a part of a class early. It's going to be a timing thing. It is going to be a timing thing. The funny part about it is that both the kids have a lot in common. Personally, they're both from Florida, obviously, both from similar areas, but also they work with the same quarterback coach, Balin Trujillo. So they're being coached in a similar fashion as far as the technical aspects of things. And they're friends. They know each other. They train together. So you know that they're talking about this, right? You know they are. How much? I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much. But they have talked. And they do talk. So I'm interested to see just how this ends up. Because it could be an awkward situation. Or it could just be a friends conversation of like, hey man, I think you like Notre Dame a little bit more than me. You can have it. Don't know. Don't know. Now, it's going to be interesting, though, to see which one it ends up being because we're talking about two very, very different quarterbacks. On one side, we have Noah Grubbs, who is 6'4", about 220 pounds, strong arm, pocket quarterback, good feet in the pocket, good feel in the pocket, really high floor passer. Really high floor pass. And the other side, and he's college ready. Like I said, he's 6'4", 220. Like he's ready to go physically. He's still gonna get stronger. He's still gonna, improve his base, all those types of things. But physically, you could drop him on a field right now, and you're good. Like he could deal with it, right? He could deal with it despite being so young. Brady Hart, on the other hand, is probably a tad taller than Noah, just like slightly. I think he was a little above 6'4" when he was measured last. But he is a string bean right now. He told us that he's up to about 190, 195, so he's increasing weight, but he is still a skinny player that still needs to add a significant amount of mass to be able to just, deal with the duration of a schedule in college and blah, 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 blah. And I love Brady Hart as a player, man. Love him. Full transparency, if I had to rank the two, Brady Hart would be slightly higher than Noah. And it's no disrespect to Noah. I think Noah is a very good player. Very good. And if Noah Grubbs ended up at Notre Dame, I'd be very happy about it because I think that he brings a whole lot to the table. Whole lot. But there's something about Brady Hart, man. There's something about him. I think he's one of the more accurate passers in this class. The ball just seems to melt into his receiver. Like it just ball placement is exceptional. Also has a whip for an arm, despite being a skinny dude right now. I think as he gets bigger and stronger, his arm strength is going to balloon. And then the personal side, which I think Salty just commented on a little bit, right, is that he has a great head on his shoulders. I've gotten to know him, came on the show. I know the quarterback coach he works with. I know that he can handle it mentally. Just kind of hearing him talk about different concepts and how he carries himself and just good player, man, and a really talented kid. And he's a little bit more mobile than, or not a little, he's more mobile than Noah. Again, not a kid that's he's not like Riley Leonard as a runner, right? Like he's not going to be a 800-yard rusher or a 700-yard rusher, but he has good escapability. He can move. I like Brady Hart a lot. I like Brady Hart a whole lot. I like Noah Grubbs a whole lot. I don't think there's a wrong answer there. It's just different, right? It's different. Because typically we see quarterbacks that are being recruited by Notre Dame or by most schools, they usually have similar-ish skill sets because it's about fitting into a scheme. I do find it very interesting that one, not only are Brady Hart and Noah Grubbs different, but Ryder Lyons is different than those two as well. They're very different players, very unique, very unique. So I am really interested to see just how everything works out. Everything works out. I think each one of them, and again, I'm speaking about the two that are most likely as of now, Brady Hart and Noah Grubbs. They are very different football players. They bring unique qualities to the table and also have good heads on their shoulders by everything that I've been able to gather. I know Brady a little bit better as far as from a football acumen perspective than I do about Noah as of now. Hopefully that changes very soon here. But I think that that's the reality we're in right now. I think those are the two most likely. It's going to come down to who wants to be in the class first. Who wants to be in the class? Because Notre Dame, by all accounts, will take either one of those players. And honestly, guys, both those players would move the needle for recruiting. Like if your urge is to get into a class as quick as possible because you want to help build up your 2026 class, I think both of these players do that for you. One, both are extremely productive. Both are, I think, threw for over 40 touchdowns last year in the state of Florida. And Coco plays a lot of great teams. He'll play some really good teams as well. They did it against some high level competition. I think it's Jason is the one that typically talks about what Brady Hart did against St. Thomas Aquinas last year. He threw for like 4 bills against them. So I like the hot take, Nathan. I'd be very, very hot if Ryder Lyons was the first to commit. That would be very. I respect it though, man. Like I said before, I respect it. I respect the hotness. Yes, sir. So that's where we are, though. That's where we are. I believe that, and someone asked this in the chat, and I think it's a great question. Who fits what Mike Denbrock wants to do offensively? I would say just off the rip, just generally, I would probably say Brady Hart. I would say Brady Hart, just with like a little bit more of a dual threat element. But I think that Mike Denbrock's the type that can assimilate to what he has around him, can make the best of what he has talent-wise, and can do that and take them to the promised land moving forward, hopefully. So I think that both those players have merits. I don't think there's a wrong answer necessarily, just a different answer. So that's quarterback recruiting, folks, 2026 class. Before I head out, hey, listen, again, program change, Mondays, recruiting hours. Okay, recruiting hours. Friday, that is going to be the mailbag for the foreseeable future, at least through the remainder of the offseason. That's going to be scheduled. Monday, recruiting hour. Friday, mailbag. So plan accordingly. All right, plan accordingly. But as always, if you have ever any questions about scheduling, make sure you hit that notification bell on YouTube so you know when the next live show is coming. Make sure you subscribe to the channel just in general, and make sure you like this video. Would very much appreciate it, okay? If you're listening to me on your favorite podcast platform, whether that is Apple, Spotify, or anything else, any major platform that you use for podcasting, 5-star reviews are very much appreciated. Make sure that you are subscribed over there as well. Wars.irishbreakdown.com. We are in the evaluation period of the offseason, spring evaluation period. So the coaches are on the road, and they have been for the last couple weeks, and it continues this week. So if you want the latest of how those visits are going and early 2026 polls and some 2027 kids as well, make sure you are signed up at boards.irishbreakdown.com. We'll also have the free content over at irishbreakdown.com. If you want to also Google Irish Breakdown Athlon. You'll get some free content over there as well for the time being. So want to thank you guys. Appreciate you. Thank you for working some technical issues with me as well. Thank you all, and I will talk to you again. This is me signing off, though, of the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour here on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.